lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item, Mr. Mayor, is an invocation from Rabbi Avremo Caroline with Chabad of Key Biscayne.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the Council, especially those who were recently selected by the Key Biscayne community to represent the Key Biscayne community. The official function of council member, as was just sworn in, is to make decisions related to policy, regulation, taxation, use of public funds, and the like. But there's also, and we can easily realize this, there's also an additional and perhaps no less important element to these leadership positions. Inevitably, people look towards not only the policies and opinions of our elected officials, but also to their character and their moral fiber, not only to what they say, but to how they say it and how they live. Their influence extends far beyond any specific vote, decision, or policy. The priorities of our village, the temperament of our citizens, and really the spirit of our community are guided and deeply affected by the people we choose to represent us. We join our thoughts in prayer this evening that the Almighty God grant wisdom, understanding, and knowledge to those who are entrusted by the people of our village. Please guide them in their valuable work in the service of our community. May God reward their honorable deeds and bless their mission with success. May they always possess the integrity and strength to remain dedicated to their own kindness and generosity that prompted them, that inspired them to volunteer for this duty in the beginning, notwithstanding the challenges that always seem to arise on the way. May they be strong leaders with the confidence and courage, and more importantly, the humility to be leaders who inspire a better way of living. May they be blessed with the wisdom to turn adversity into opportunity and to transform the challenges we face today into the seeds of growth for a greater tomorrow. And as we approach the holiday of Hanukkah, we hope to internalize the powerful and uplifting messages of the flames of the menorah. Hanukkah takes place in the winter season, at least in other parts of the world, when the nights are long and the days short, when there is more darkness than light. The menorah is kindled specifically when it's dark, representing the important lesson and the eternal truth that although at times the world may seem a dark and dreary place, we have the potential to light a candle of hope and warmth to illuminate the darkness. Light is always victorious, and it's not by engaging in battle with darkness, it's not by fighting with it. All the light must do is shine, and when there's light, the darkness has no place. With this in mind, we pray that God Almighty help our elected officials to bring light into our community. And in return, may they and their families be blessed with health, happiness, and success in all they do. And as we say in Hebrew, Oseh Shalom b'mromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu. May God, who makes peace on high, bring peace upon us and upon all of humanity. And let us say, Amen.
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 Next item, Mr. Mayor, is brief comments by council.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi, for your invocation tonight. And before the rabbi leaves, just wanted to make a comment. Our community was a little bit shaken up this weekend by the fact that the community church, the Key Biscayne Community Church, who always does a Christmas tree sale every year, and that is their big fundraiser. Well, it looks like they have a vendor that wasn't very forthright, and so your community got together right away and started working on trying to fix a bad situation. The Pastor Denny sent out a letter telling the congregation that looks like they had been scammed by an unscrupulous vendor. But right away, the community came together. There are people that started to work to try to get them trees there so that their tradition could continue and their fundraising can continue. The police chief was on it right away, and they're trying to find the vendor, and I think that we have made some attempts to find the vendor. But this is the kind of thing in this, especially this time of year in this season, is that this community comes together, and it comes together in a big way. And so this is, when one part of the community hurts, the whole community hurts. So just so that you know, Rabbi, my pastor, Father Paiwawa, and others are willing to get together as a group to try to see what we can do if we have to help this part of our community. So we just wanted to mention that. I think that this is a big deal. If their situation doesn't improve, I think we as a community need to step up in some way. Ed, you want to make a few comments in this section since you were not with us when...
I'm sorry I missed the event, festivities. It won't happen again because I'm not going to run again. So, but again, I apologize. Glad to be here. Look forward to 4 more years of trying to make Key Biscayne not only the best place in the world, but even better. So that's what I'm going to do.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kaplan?
I think I should call out the first double entendre of our new term. Thank you for breaking the poetic ice. That was good. We turn a page. Let's shine some light.
Yes, sir.
I want to make a couple of comments. I want to thank you for bringing that up about the church. And, if this does become a criminal case, I hope that, our village can do whatever we can to help assist them to bring justice. So, we'll see what ends up happening there. I'm also very thankful for the newly elected 4 of you coming up. And just want to say congratulations to all 4 of you up here. I'm excited to working with you. And, I think that we need to sometimes, and we need to do more often, is thank our staff for doing a wonderful job when they do. And I don't think we do it enough. And something that I've said up here many times is that we need to be setting the example out there where other municipalities are looking at us. And, I did have the opportunity, as well as some other council members, to go to the Miami-Dade League of Cities Best Practice Conference. And we had our village manager up there, and with staff like Jake and Roland and other people in the Public Works Department, and it was actually really lovely to watch how much that we're actually setting the trend out there when it comes to resiliency, and all of the we had the Back Bay officer from the county there, and they were even saying that we're the ones that people are looking at now. And I think that we need to recognize that we're doing a good job, and that's what we need to be doing in all facets of what we do up here. And thank you guys very much for what you're doing, and let's keep pushing that envelope.
Okay, thank you much. Any other comments? If not, okay.
The next item is public comments.
Okay. Mike Davey?
He can't resist.
Who is this guy?
Where's the timer? Start the timer.
Yes.
Why don't you show them how to do it?
Mike Davey, 50 Ocean Lane Drive, Unit 107, longtime listener, first-time caller. Look, congratulations to you all. I think you got a great group up here. I hope you guys get a lot done. I want to remind the community, as everybody talked about at our installation, this is a community that governs itself. So I want to see as many people here in these chambers as we can, and not just because they're angry about something, but because they have ideas and because they're going to listen. Because it is important that the community stays involved even when we're not having elections. So I encourage everybody in this community to remain committed to being involved. Call your council members, call your mayor, as often as possible. I know he loves to get phone calls. I've got his cell if anybody needs it. But really, that's really what I wanted to say. And I forgot at the installation, and I'm embarrassed about this, but I wanted to thank our village clerk, Jocelyn Cook, for putting that evening together.
Yes.
Because it was an incredible event. And, you know, I mean, it showed, like, we had, 300 people there? And I think when it just showed how engaged our community can be when it's engaged, and that's what we need to continue to do. So that's not on you, that's on the community, and I encourage them all to stay involved, and thank you all. I'm going home to dinner.
Mayor,
No
Mayor,
questions.
you left something under here. Would you take this with you?
That's for 2 years.
You thought you'd miss it.
Okay, public comments. All right, I gotta stop this.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you would like to speak during tonight's public comments, please listen to the following instructions. If you have joined through Zoom, please click the raise hand button and you will be unmuted when you first turn to speak. If you are watching on television or streaming live from our website, please call 305-365-7569 and enter the following meeting ID 231-627-8415, followed by pound, then press 9. When it is your turn to speak, you will be called upon by the last 4 digits of your telephone number. Press star 9 to raise your hand, and when called upon, press star 6 to unmute yourself.
Anybody there?
No, sir.
Okay, so we'll keep going. Next speaker on their public comments, Augusto Granados.
Hello, thank you. Augusto Granados, 55 Ocean Lane Drive, Unit 1035. As a resident and a father of 3 players on the soccer team, those who know me didn't know I was going to talk about soccer. I wanted to give a certain perspective on the soccer club and what's going on with the soccer club. The kids that are up here are great kids, and we have great kids and great players on the soccer team. Nobody doubts that. I was on the athletic board when the last bid was made. In that bid, the presenters were the presenters of the vendor, the current vendor, were Jackie Kellogg and Marcelo, who's actually here. Jackie had been president for a long time, for almost 10 years, and as a parent, resident, and even somebody who played as a kid for the soccer club, she was great at being our eyes and ears locally, watching the club. Soccer is a big sport. It's our biggest sport. Has over 1,000 kids, could have even more, and it's a big deal. But if we don't have a Key Biscayner who has their eyes and ears on the field day to day, it devolves into an enterprise that is more for the coaches, the administration, and other interested parties instead of for our community. That's why Jackie and Marcelo actually got involved 15 years ago, because our club was toxic, and it was led by coaches, for coaches, and it wasn't working for our community. Since then, Marcelo moved out of Key Biscayne, but obviously he's still involved and he's the president. But Jackie remained all those years, and she was heavily involved. You can run into her in Winn-Dixie and ask her to help you to register your kid or make a process a payment or hear your complaints. Personally, as a father of 3 daughters, she was really helpful in trying to grow the girls' program. She was our security blanket. She was the one that made sure that this served the Key. When she left the club, I replaced her, and I was there for 2 years. But since March, I was asked to leave, and since then, quite honestly, we've gone back 15 years. Now the club has gone back to not having a Key Biscayner with their eyes and ears on the day-to-day activities, and the club is being run by a coach named Peachy, who's on their board of directors, who replaced Jackie on the board of directors, and there are negative effects, and you see it. This isn't the forum to discuss them. This is actually the reason why I'm up here, is because the forum to do that is to do an RFP. The council had given a directive that all contracts that are up will be done with an RFP. And so I'm asking that the council's directive be respected, and then we do an RFP and it be published by December. So if there is a new vendor, hopefully one that has strong ties to Key Biscayne and their eyes and ears on it, that vendor could be ready for tryouts by May. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, Jackie Kellogg. Is she here? Okay. And my last speaker, Mark Freed.
Good evening, Mark Freed, 560 Allendale Road, 291 Harbor Court, 485 Warren Lane, 360 Glen Ridge Road, and now 525 Warren Lane. Those are all the places I've lived in my whole life except for when I was away at college. This is my island. I love this place. Thank you very much for serving and caring for it. What I'm looking at is, don't just say, each person where they live has their own lens, what they see and how this village is and how people react and what the village does for them. And that's set by policy. When we look at a lens, we question, is that policy being applied equally to everybody? I can't answer that. I have my opinion, but I'm not going to state it now. It's just something that I hope that we can keep an eye on and make it where everybody looks in the future and goes, that is being applied to me equally to everybody, including those who are on the dais. So as Rabbi Caroline mentioned in his invocation, part of the duties, part of your work is setting policy. I hope it's set fairly for everybody and applied equally to everybody. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is the agenda. Approval, deferrals, additions, deletions, substitutions, withdrawals.
I'd like to make an addition. And there's a discussion item. I'd like to make a vision plan update.
Okay, so this is other business, or
Council member
let's see.
B13, B8. B8.
B8.
13B8.
B8 is added, unless there's an objection. Seeing no objection?
All good?
All those in favor?
Go, I'm sorry. Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item,
No, excuse me. I thought the 13, what's it, B1, remove that, noise ordinance.
Okay.
And from the consent agenda, 9B, remove that.
Move it?
Well, we'll just, for discussion.
move it. Thank you.
Okay, is this?
Pull it off. Where do we end up
He's
putting that?
pulling it, okay.
Chad, did we put that before or after?
So you want, this is just additions, deletions, and deferrals.
Yeah, so he wants to pull 9B.
So you want to pull 9B?
Yes.
Okay,
consent.
so just make it known, so when we get to the consent, we won't hear that, we'll hear it after. And then the first one was the noise orders under discussion,
Yes.
you were pulling that
That's
off.
what
Pulling it,
Miscommunications between us, so therefore, going to postpone it until the next meeting.
okay. So, all right,
It's not a discussion item, that's all.
right, okay.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item, Mr. Mayor, is a special presentation, proclamations for Mary Tague and Francis Reeves for the planning and execution of Key Biscayne Car Week.
Ladies, if you would please come to the podium. There you go.
Hello.
Hi, Mary.
We're both in black and white. Suspicious occasion.
So I'll just briefly read some aspects of this very nice proclamation for each one of you. Whereas Francis Reeves and whereas Mary Tague founders and co-chairs of the Key Biscayne Car Week, an event that began in 2019 in an effort to share the legacy of automobile design, innovation, originality, and driving talent with the Key Biscayne community. And whereas each continues to exhibit leadership in bringing unparalleled events to our community and has committed to work with the village and our community partners to make Key Biscayne Car Week a renowned annual attraction in the greater Miami area. Now, therefore, I, Joel I. Rasco, Mayor of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, do hereby issue this proclamation of gratitude to Francis Reeves and to Mary Tague for their exemplary leadership as well as their dedication and collaborative spirit that has and will continue to bring culture, education, and increased quality of life to the lives of Key Biscayne residents. Thank you very much.
I know this will shock you. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, I know this will shock you that I might want to say something. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome to the podium.
Thank you all for being here.
I just wanted to say that I speak a little for Mary and I, but certainly Mary can speak for herself. But first of all, we love doing this, and we love the proclamation. But we also think that it's really important that everybody understand that as hard as Mary and I work, another Key Biscayne resident named Saleh Stojanovic is the man behind this. He has a company called Function, and he puts together Art Basel, South Bee, what is it, So Bee Wine and Food. We've been to all of them, Mary.
Swim show.
The swim show.
Miami Grand Prix.
Miami Grand Prix, yeah. He's the man who got Miami Grand Prix.
Miami Open.
Yeah, and so what we want to tell you all is that he is, besides being a Key Biscayne resident, he volunteers everything. He volunteers his employees, he volunteers himself, he volunteers his knowledge, and the only thing we pay for when Saleh does this show are his out-of-pocket expenses. There's no administration fee, says the lawyer. And so we owe a debt of gratitude also to Saleh. And, of course, our leader.
Emerson Fittipaldi.
Yeah. Remember him? And this is Emerson's brainchild. And Mary, do I speak for both of us when I say we're really glad that he chose us to sort of lead this? Although we're blondes, I can't blame him. He had a penchant for them. But nevertheless, we're really gratified that Emerson brought us and Saleh and that we get to do this for the community. And, you know, Steve, our manager, is so enthusiastic about it. He's challenged us 2 days next year. So it's all really great. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you both for your service to Key Biscayne.
Thank you.
The next item is a proclamation recognizing Curative Inc. for their efforts and contributions to the Village of Key Biscayne during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Are the people from Curative here? Please come to the front here. Okay, whereas Curative Inc. skillfully supported the Key Biscayne community throughout this very difficult and challenging times of the COVID-19 pandemic from 2020 through 2022, by providing readily available standard testing and rapid testing services at the Village Green and Calusa Park sites, Whereas Curative worked collaboratively with the village and its community partners to ensure testing on demand was accessible to first responders and village staff in times of need. Whereas Curative provided a total of 151,591 COVID-19 tests over a period of 2 years between the two testing sites, offering the opportunity for our residents to safeguard themselves, their families, and co-workers, and enable them to experience the mobile quality of life needed for their professional and family life lifestyles. Now, therefore, I, Joe I. Rasco, Mayor of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, do hereby issue this proclamation of sincere gratitude for Curative, Inc., dedication to the safety and security of the Key Biscayne community during this two challenging years of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What they get paid per test. I was thinking, damn good business.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Lazaro Rodriguez. I am the regional manager who oversees both the Village of Key Biscayne and the Calusa Park COVID-19 sites. At the start of the pandemic, testing conditions weren't exactly ideal. My colleagues and I vividly remember and kind of recall questioning, how are we going to survive Miami weather wearing a mask, face shields, gowns, and gloves? But boy, were we in for a surprise. But nevertheless, we knew there was a mission that needed to be completed, and that was to end the COVID-19 pandemic. I'd like to first thank Mr. Steve Williamson, the city elected officials, for this recognition tonight. It was through our partnership that we were able to address the community's needs for COVID-19 testing. And I think that's very important. A key player of this project was your very own Chief Resilience and Sustainability Officer, Dr. Roland Sammy, if he's around. You know, whether if it was troubleshooting an issue or just simply calling in to check in and see how we're doing, Dr. Sammy, if I pronounced that correctly, yeah, responded quickly every time. Therefore, we can't thank you enough for your continued efforts and your support and guidance throughout this whole time. So thank you. Really appreciate it. I'd also like to recognize the site leads, Loreto Pereira Paredes, David Mendoza, and Estefania Diaz. They were the ones that pretty much were upholding the day-to-day operations and our company standards. Your dedication, your commitment, and your hard work these last 2 years do not go unnoticed. And we really, on behalf of Curative, we just really can't thank you enough for all your hard work and dedication. And on behalf of Key Biscayne, thank you for the work you did over the last couple of years. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Bye-bye. And just to end, on behalf of Curative CEO Fred Turner and all executive officers involved in this crucial venture, it's been an absolute pleasure and honor to serve the community of Key Biscayne, and we thank you for this award. Thank you, guys.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is the consent agenda.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Excuse me.
Aye.
I think it's moved less the item that Councilmember London pulled.
Moved minus 9B.
Yeah.
It's understood that this is now
Pulled.
11, what is it, E, right? 9B is
No, I
11E.
read it right after. I read it
Yeah.
next.
It's not removed, it's moved.
Yes, after the consent agenda, then
Yeah.
I'll read that resolution. So all those in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, approving an agreement with the Key Biscayne Chamber of Commerce in an amount not to exceed $89,235, providing for authorization and providing for an effective date.
Move.
Second.
Thank you.
Ed, this is, you pulled it, it's your item.
Tatiana, front and center, sweetheart. I'm sure we've all read all the wonderful things that the Key Biscayne Chamber does and how they assist us in all these various things. For many years, obviously, we never supported them with anything other than a free office, and now we give them money. We've been giving them money. So my question is this, and Steve, this is probably you also. Assuming they didn't do the things that they claim that they're doing, and I'm sure they are, in the list of things, would we do those?
We'd have to do a number, and yes,
Would we have to hire anybody to do that, or could we do it with the staff we have?
I'd probably need an additional staff member.
So what you're telling me is that, if I understand correctly, that the money we're paying them would be equal or less than what it cost us to do it ourselves?
And I think actually they can do it more effectively because they know the village much better than anyone we could hire.
So, but forget about better or worse. Now I'm just talking about numbers. So would you think it's fair to say that what they do would be at a lower cost than would cost us?
Definitely, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
That was lovely. Thank you. Maybe the lunch worked.
She thought she was going to soften me up today at lunch. Didn't work.
And just approve it.
Okay,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is the first reading of an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending ordinance number 2022-06, which adopted the budget for fiscal year 2022-2023 by revising the 2022-2023 fiscal year budget, providing for implementation, and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. Colleen Blank, Capital Improvement Program Manager. These are 6 capital improvement projects from fiscal year 22 that are ongoing that we need to roll funding over into the next fiscal year in order to complete fairly shortly. There are 2 items. There's 2 projects that require additional budget. We're not asking for any supplemental money. We think that we can fund those additional needs through the fiscal year 2022 projects and fiscal year 2023 additional funding.
okay, we have an ordinance on first reading, so let's not go crazy here. Any discussion?
No.
No discussion? One, Ed.
The utility undergrounding allowance, the $75,000 for the Paradise Park, and the actual of $227,000.
Yes.
What undergrounding did we do in the park, or what do we plan on doing?
I think Jake could probably speak to this a little better, but from what I understand, it's the north side of the park. There's at least three utility poles and a utility box that all need to be undergrounded. Jake, do you want to speak more to that?
I think it's along the property line.
It's along the property line between the bank and the Paradise Park. It's actually quite a lot of power lines.
Yeah. We've had this discussion before, that this is the time to do it if we're opening everything up.
Hey, guys, just because there's a different style that I have, the way that I've always run meetings is just go through the chair, so let's try to remember that, and same with everyone else. Please, Jake?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, we have a number of lines, FPL, AT&T, and Comcast run through Paradise Park as it is today. They want to underground before we finish the project. And the total cost, again, including our contractor cost and the fees paid to FPL, Comcast, and AT&T, cost about $200 and change.
Yeah, 220.
$220. Fortunately, $75,000 was allocate the project, which was well below the estimated number at the time, but we had to make the numbers work, but it is the actual cost of doing the work.
Through the chair,
Ed,
say Comcast. There's no Comcast serving the park. There's Comcast serving the community center,
It runs through the park,
but through the park,
correct,
but not to the park, but through the park.
correct.
And as far as the electric lines,
Same thing, it runs through it. It connects, I believe, community center is connected from two different feeders. One of them is the one that we're undergrounding. And again, it comes from East Side Island going all the way to west. So it connects east to west.
what power do we need in the park with the exception of lights?
There's some, I believe, 20 amp receptacles out there that we have for future events.
So the actual work, if I understand, was removing 3 poles and undergrounding those lines?
Either 3 or 4, I believe 4, new switchgear, transformer, and a transition pole.
Okay, was this done by FPNL or a private contractor?
We've, it's like 80-20. So our contractor has a FPL-approved subcontractor that did the conduit work, but FPL is going to come and pull the wires. So some work FPL does it themselves, some they let others do.
FPL normally supplies the conduit and the contractor pulls the wires, right? My experience.
They supply the conduit, and we built the trench and we buried the conduits.
And do we have any kind of bids on that? The only reason I'm asking, it seems absolutely excessive. Absolutely, we have almost no electric in the park, and 3 poles to cost $227,000, where we had no choice.
But again, it's not necessarily electric service for the park. It's runs through the park.
I understand.
And the electrical items for this park, separate item, that was, separate line item that we spent, I'm not sure how much, but I believe $150,000 to $200,000 in range. That was lighting for this park alone. And to answer your question, no, you don't have an option. FPL is FPL. Comcast is Comcast, AT&T is AT&T.
Of this, how much is FPNL?
I would say 2/3 of it FPL.
Sorry?
2/3.
$150,000 around there.
To remove 3 poles and to put a transformer in.
Transformer, switchgear, the poles, and
add the poles.
removing the poles and pulling conductors.
And we were told about this after the fact, not before the fact. In other words, before we thought we were going to spend $75,000, but once we did this, they jacked the price up.
No.
Cost us $227.
When we bid the project, $75,000 allowance that
Was that just pulling out of thin air?
No, we did some, Matt, but again, at the time, we had the budget, and we could only allocate $75,000. And FPL was actually right on the money. It was always $150,000 estimate.
Obviously, there's nothing we can do now, but I think it's a big shock to anybody who looks at the stuff when you see numbers like this, and then all of a sudden, you got this change order, which is about $152,000 more than we applied. So I would think in the future, rather than just having these allocations, we should have some rough estimates going forward so we as council know what it's going to cost us. That's all. Thank you.
okay, on this same item, anybody else want to weigh in? Okay, seeing none?
Oh, excuse me, let me continue on that, Joe, if you don't mind.
Okay,
The next thing is that the original contract was $1.3 million, original budget, and that was before we had a bid. I assume when you get an odd number like that, it was based on a bid, and then it went up to $1,528,000, which is another $216,000. And does that have to do with the remediation? Because remediation is listed separately. So what did that have to do with, that increase? Jake, I'm sorry.
That might be another Jake
giving you the
question that was
exercise walking
before I
back
was
and
here.
Then Councilman, you referred to escalation, about $202,000?
I'm sorry?
Are you referring to escalation?
I'm talking, yeah, going up from the $1.3 million to $1.5 million, it's not 127, it's 216.
Correct. So we bid the job, and then we sat on the bid for about 2 years as the village. And the price has changed, and the contractor's price were valid for, I believe, 90 days. And the COVID happened, material shortage, labor increase. This was the best price we could negotiate to move the job forward.
So basically, at that point in time, they could terminate the contract, we could terminate the contract.
Correct.
But instead, we renegotiated.
Correct.
Thank you. How much, when you bid the job originally, you had at least 3 bidders, I assume, and were these people significantly below everybody else? Or was it close?
They're the lowest responsible bidder. I don't recall the exact numbers. But
No, the only reason I'm saying, when you have that kind of increase, if the other bidders were much higher, initially, you wouldn't even talk to them. But if, in fact, they were very close, then I think you would inquire with them, what do you want to do now, type thing.
Again, the project was bid, and then we waited about 2 years.
I understand.
So all those numbers were no
I
longer
understand
relevant.
all that. Okay, again, this is just going forward as far as policy goes. When these type of things happen, and before you just renegotiate with the contractors, can be terminated by either side for non-performance, since, again, the pandemic, that we really should look at the other bids to make sure that we're not going ahead and giving people an extra couple $100,000 without checking maybe the second bidder who was close by.
Right. We could have, and we did actually talk to other contractors, and it was in our best interest to go with this contractor. They would give us the best value.
Okay.
If we were to bid this job, probably going to be 20-30% more than what we're paying today.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember McCormick.
Just, Jake, back to the 75,000. Is I think I got confused when you were giving your explanation. Is a part of the jump the 2-year wait, or did we really just say this is how much is left? Let's throw 75,000 at the underground when you had the budget.
Pretty much. Again, we were trying to make the numbers work. This goes back 3 or 4 years, and the project didn't have the budget, and there was only monies left.
So even though we kind of knew that wasn't going to
Yeah.
be nearly enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other takers?
I think just, kind of a takeaway, larger question, and concerns our ability going forward to negotiate with proper leverage with FP&L, so as not to be victimized by predatory pricing. And it's a challenge. We're going to have to be smart and disciplined and find our leverage.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you.
I have a question through the
Yes,
chair.
Fernando.
As it relates to the, Jake, as it relates to the budget that you've allocated now, do you think it warrants, how old did you say it was, the budget? The actual financing that was allocated for this, 5 years old? Does it merit a revisiting of what
No.
we're looking at? Because we really want to work with true numbers,
Yeah.
negotiations set aside and bidding set aside. Let's understand what we're at on the market and the cost.
Again, this job we are 80% complete right now.
Okay, but for future ones?
Yeah, for the future ones. And again, when we brought this project, it was well over $2 million. And we tried to do cost cutting to make it fit. And, unfortunately, the labor and the material costs went up.
Yeah, that's
We are
stuff.
where we are.
Those are the movements of the market, and there's nothing much we can do except just deal with the regular competition, but merits to be looked at. I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other,
Okay.
yes.
Roll call. Councilmember McCormick.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Moss.
Yes.
Councilmember Sardinius.
Yes.
Councilmember Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Roscoe.
Yes.
Councilmember Kaplan.
Yes.
Councilmember London.
Yes.
The ordinance is approved on first reading. The next item is the resolution of the mayor and village council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, making certain finding and designating the real property located at 530 Crandon Boulevard, Key Biscayne, Florida, 33149, identified by Miami-Dade County Folio Number 24-4232- 001-0050 as a brownfield area pursuant to Section 376.802A Florida statutes for the purpose of environmental rehabilitation, job creation, and promoting economic redevelopment, authorizing the village clerk to notify the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and Miami-Dade County of said designation, authorizing the village manager to execute a brownfield site rehabilitation agreement with Miami-Dade County, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes.
So moved.
Second.
Thank
We
you.
have a first and a second discussion on this item.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is a capital project authorizing resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, approving the purchase of 5 police vehicles from Allen J. Automotive Management, Inc., DBA Allen J. Fleet Sales, in an amount not to exceed $245,000, providing for authorization and providing for the identification and sale or disposition of surplus property, providing for implementation, and providing for an effective date.
Move.
I have a second. I have a second.
Second.
Discussion on the item?
Thank you.
Is it the police vehicles?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Who seconded the motion? Councilmember McCormick or Mayor Roscoe?
No, Councilmember Sardinius.
Councilmember Sardinius? Okay, thank you.
We have Mr. London.
Anybody else want to go first this time?
Brett, you want to?
No, I don't have any
Okay.
discussion on this.
Okay. Frank, we got crew cabs, which I assume is a pickup truck.
Yes, sir.
Why are we getting pickup trucks?
Because when we had our flooding event in June of this year, we don't have vehicles that can traverse in the flooded areas to rescue our residents when they're stranded.
How many pickup trucks do we need for that?
Well, right now we have 6 pickup trucks that are all 11 years old that need to be repurposed. My goal is to outfit the patrol sergeants with pickup trucks. So we ordered 2 this year, and as we replace them, we'll order 2 more.
We have 4 shifts, so to have a pickup truck on each shift, we would need 4, right?
Correct, sir.
Why do we have more than 4?
Because the fleet originally was all pickup trucks.
Well, it doesn't matter what originally was. I'm just asking, going forward, why do we do that?
Why would we?
Why would we have pickup trucks? We talk about the police being more accessible, more recognizable, people seeing them, people relating to them. You and I have talked about neighborhood policing, whatever we talk about. And to me, a pickup truck is not something conducive to basically relating to the residents. So I understand you need 4 of them, but why should we get more than 4? That's all.
So I'm only asking for 2 this year, sir. My
But
goal
you
is to
have
have
6.
4.
I'm saying, you say you're 6, and I'm saying, you said you're 6 pickup trucks.
No, currently in our fleet right now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, we have 6 pickup trucks that are 11 years old.
Yeah, fine.
They're going to get phased out.
So you're going to get rid of how many?
We're
How many
probably-
we have, well, how many are going to have when we're all done? We get you 2 new pickup trucks.
When we're all said and done, repurposing the pickup trucks, we're going to have 4 total pickup trucks.
Great, that's what I was, that's what, you made me happy.
There you go. All right. Mr. Kaplan.
On just a similar vein, the Tahoe high water vehicle, that's a new acquisition, new type of vehicle for the fleet?
No, so we had 2 deputy chiefs here. There's an unmarked vehicle that's missing. Our major is driving our 2nd detective's car. So we need to replace an unmarked car. And the Tahoe also serves as a high water vehicle. It's higher than the hybrid. And it's cheaper than the hybrid.
Okay.
Through the mayor.
Chief, can the high water vehicle go through areas like West Heather Drive when it's really flooded?
300 blocks.
Huh?
What's the specific address there?
I don't know, but well,
excuse me. That's a pickup also, the high water vehicle?
No,
What is it?
the pickup is just a patrol vehicle.
No,
It
what's the-
sits
what
higher
is the-
than the hybrid.
What's the high water vehicle?
The high water vehicle is a fire department vehicle.
It's a Chevy Tahoe.
The Chevy Tahoe sits higher than the hybrid. We need certain vehicles in our fleet that when we have to respond to calls to rescue residents, which we do on a normal rain event here, the hybrids, we have to park them because they're too low and water will get into them, the vehicle will become inoperable.
Right.
So my vehicle is being used to assist residents, the new Tahoe will be used, and the 2 pickup trucks.
Well, why can't the 4 pickup trucks be all high water vehicles? Since you just said that's what we need during, we have the storm events. Why do we have to have a 5th one?
We're short a car, sir.
So in other words, this is just in lieu of a car?
Correct. These 5 vehicles are replacing 5 aging vehicles. We're not adding any vehicles to our fleet.
Okay, fine. I'm done.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yes.
Through the chair, just
Mr.
a
Vasquez.
quick question, Chief. Is there, so there's no Constable piling up vehicles here, you are intending to decommission those vehicles, and is there any, obviously it's not going to be scrap cost, but is there any refund to us? Is there anything accounted on this that it's merit to?
So every vehicle that
Right.
we are going to replace
Right.
goes to auction.
Okay.
And so we do recoup costs
How
on
much
each of the
would-
vehicles.
How much would you say?
Last, 5,000 to 7,000
Per vehicle?
per vehicle.
Something.
What do we get for the pickup? The loss of transmission.
These
Like,
are
we just
vehicles
had a
over
pickup that lost the
100,000 miles.
transmission. We didn't even fix it because
Right.
it wasn't worth the
You
cost.
took it to auctions to
We took
rehab.
it to auction and auctioned it.
Right. So overall, what do you think we could get as an offset to this cost?
I mean, right now, the market's higher for used vehicles.
Right.
But I would stick with the 5,000 to 7,000 that we've been getting, just because you need to remember, these vehicles have 180,000 miles on them.
Yeah.
They have a lot of wear and tear on them.
Yeah, and they're not highway miles, they're just start, stop all throughout, so,
And they're consistently driven.
yeah. Just didn't see that particular note in there, but if, next time, I mean, or whatever, just
Okay.
let us know what
We'll
the
note. It just-
offset would be.
The number fluctuates.
Yeah.
And it goes back into the general fund.
Sure.
Any other questions or no? Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We need to go back to the last item. The last item, need to open the public hearing to satisfy the requirements of this item.
Okay.
Evan, can you read the instructions, please?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you would like to speak during tonight's public comments, please listen to the following instructions. If you have joined through Zoom, please click the raise hand button. You'll be unmuted when it's your turn to speak. If you are watching on television or streaming live from our website, please call 305-365-7569 and enter the following meeting ID: 231-627-8415, followed by pound, then press 9. When it's your turn to speak, you will be called upon by the last 4 digits on your telephone. Press star 9 to raise your hand. When called upon, press star 6 to unmute.
Public hearing is open.
And Mayor, just to be clear, this is on item 11A on the brownfield item. It's only on the brownfield item. Sir, you could keep your comments. We do have comments later on the agenda.
At the end of the meeting, you can fill it out and.
Seeing no one else, we close the public hearing.
Okay.
The next item is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, confirming a declaration of a state of emergency due to Hurricane Ian and related expenditures and providing for an effective date.
Moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion on the item? London.
Looking at the item on page, the first page, and then looking at on the, I guess it's 3 more pages back, and we have a Tiger Dam, which is listed on the second page, the third page, which is not listed on the first page. First of all, what is a Tiger Dam? Second of all, the $25,000 to do a survey to determine that we've lost beach sand. Again, some explanation on that. We also have the drone flight. I know we've purchased 2 drones. We spent $20-some thousand to have them licensed. So is that our drone we're paying somebody for? Are we hiring an outside drone person? What's that all about? That's the only thing I have on that.
Okay, questions for manager?
So the first one, the reason why you don't see it, and it just got cut off on the first one.
Okay.
That cost is good. But so a Tiger Dam is basically a rubberized system that you fill up with water to block any movement of water. What we do is we use it for the entrance to the garage. Instead of putting down sandbags that's immediately deployed, you fill it up, and it blocks water from moving into the garage.
I have them in front of my garage. I'm very familiar with it.
I would not call that a Tiger Dam, council member.
We don't call them Tiger Dams. But
I'd
anyway,
call that a kiddie
the
dam.
cost looks, how long are they? 20 feet?
Well, they could be as long as you want.
The ones you bought?
Whatever the width of
The garage.
Garages, yeah.
And that's-
You can buy them, I mean, they don't come specifically to size,
They
but
come, I
they're
understand.
short, they're large, they're medium, yeah.
I have them. So I know, just price looks excessive, that's all. Very excessive.
Oh, we had to get it quick.
We got quotes on those things? 3 bids on that? Or emergency, we didn't bother?
Not necessary during an emergency. That's,
So that's how we get around that. Okay.
Yeah.
And
And
then
then
how about the
I'll let-
$25,000 for the survey?
yeah, I'll let Roland talk about the survey.
So, Councilmember London, the survey that was done was undertaken it was a topographic survey as well as a bathymetric survey. So it involves from the dune line all the way out to 14 feet deep.
Sorry,
And
how deep?
14 feet deep.
Okay.
And it's done consistent with what the FDEP requires in order to actually quantitatively determine whether a beach has lost sand, gained sand, where it's shifted to. And it was done consistently with all the other previous surveys that are required for the permit. Each year, a physical survey needs to be done of the beach. And this is in order for us to be able to determine what the effects of Ian were and how much sand was gained or lost and where it's moved to.
So this was required by some authority, whether it be the Army Corps or the state or somebody?
FEMA.
Ultimately, if we want to get reimbursed for any sand losses, we need to be able to quantitatively
That's what we
determine
have is-
what's been lost and what's been gained and where.
And then my question again, do we get bids on this? We just pick one guy and do it?
It was the group that has been doing it consistently year to year per the permit.
So we don't bother checking, so we get a better price from somebody else?
Well, in truth, we do it with the same contractor so that the data sets are consistent and you can compare one data set to the next.
Well, somebody takes if somebody goes ahead and it's 4 foot deep and it was 4.5 foot deep, it doesn't matter who measures it, does it?
No, it's all a matter of the equipment that you use, the techniques that you use, the transects that you use.
Right.
There's more to it than just going out to whether it's
Well,
4.5 feet or 4 feet.
But by the same token, again, try to buy things properly and means getting bids. In fact, I hate to keep bringing it up, but we keep avoiding it as much as possible. I know it's much easier. I'm not saying anything about you. I'm just saying as a policy, and I go over and over again, get bids on everything we can.
Councilmember, though, what I think you're misunderstanding here. This is under emergency declaration order, and so we're allowed to move forward on these. In fact, you need to move forward because you have to do it within the window of the emergency.
Excuse me, assume we didn't do it that week, whatever we did, and you did it a month later, how would that affect us?
Well, when the county came asking us for what we lost, we couldn't have told them.
And then we'd tell them a month later, right?
Yeah,
And
when were they going to replace us or give us money?
we don't know right now, but our request is up at FDEM at the state right now.
Sadly, I would also add that if we had waited,
Yeah.
we would also seen the effects of Nicole, and then you wouldn't be able to tell what happened during Ian. So things do change quickly. I mean, we did it a week after Ian, and then unfortunately we got a Nicole, and that changed the beach as well. So we're constantly juggling, you know, all these different factors that are competing against each other and against us.
I'm not disagreeing
Okay,
on any of those
Ed.
things. No more.
Mayor.
I have Mr. Moss and then Councilwoman Allison and then Mr. Vasquez.
So you said that we do these surveys once a year per permit.
Per the permit, yeah.
Is there a certain time that we typically do those?
Yeah, we usually do them in the summertime, coincidental with the biological monitoring that's done as well.
And could this survey that we did replace the one that we're going to do in the summer or not?
Most likely not, because this is storm-related. And again, we had a Nicole, and any other storm that we get this winter that will change the conditions of the beach and the near shore waters. So, you know, everything's constantly changing. And, you know, the minimum that we are required to do is once a year per the permit. We voluntarily chose to survey the beach because people have been asking, wow, it seems like a lot of sand has been lost from the beach as a result of Ian, and also because if we want to submit to the state for reimbursement for any sand loss, we have to survey the beach and the near shore waters to be able to determine what has been lost and what has been gained. So it's not likely that we could use this survey as a supplement to what we would end up doing per the permit requirements this coming summer.
And I think if I could add to that, Vice Mayor, too, and I think if you read the whole intent of this resolution, this is notifying the council of what we spent under a declaration of emergency,
Yeah, no, I understand
which is we're going to get reimbursed for this. This is not something that, you know, we had to move quickly on it. There's a very short window to do this. And in fact, the contract that we did use to do the survey is actually already negotiated under a CCNA contract that we have with this corporation, with this company who does it. So,
well, it's with Moffitt and Nichol, and this is the surveying company that Moffitt and Nichol uses to do the bathymetric and topographic survey.
So you are proposing that this is going to be sent out to FEMA for reimbursement?
That's
through the county?
This is just it's a requirement of our ordinance to, when we declare an emergency, I have a responsibility to come back to the council, say these are the expenses we spent during the declaration of emergency, and then these will go forward for request for reimbursement.
Okay, because I just thought that we did not meet a certain threshold. That's what I heard that from somebody.
No, that was my discussion I was having to you with
okay.
the beach loss amount.
Oh,
We're still working with the county. The
okay,
full,
but this is different.
Yeah, the 11.9 versus ours being about a $3 million loss. That's the amount of loss on the sand.
All right, so this is reimbursable.
This is just straight up. Okay. What did we, as a village, spend during the declaration of emergency?
Thank you.
Councilwoman?
Just a couple of questions. One, the Public Works Department sand, is that the sand that does that include the sand made available to the community for self-service of sandbags?
That is the sand.
That is the sand?
Yes.
Okay. And the Tiger Dam, that's just a one-time purchase, right? No, we need to buy that every time?
No, one-time purchase, yeah. I thought,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
we own it.
We own it now, and all we have to do is fill it up with water.
Right.
Mr. Vasquez.
Thank you. I guess this, to me, it's a much bigger issue, and something that how to grapple on it is, you know, you have the catastrophic events like Ian, where you are, you know, surely will be guaranteed to some high degree relief. But these ongoing impacts, this incessant storms that affect us on a consistent basis, how do we capture that prior? How do we, I mean, that's, what level of confidence, I guess, first of all, in the context of what the storm did to us, what level of confidence do we have that we are in a priority list within FEMA, and this is more to the manager, that they will refund us this money, or that we won't wait? I had an issue at Miami Beach with Wilma where we waited some years for that money to come, and that's one of the things that I just insisted in the fact that these hurricanes, everybody says, oh, we'll worry about a big hurricane. No, you know, you get hit with these all the time, and they affect your budget all the time. So
Well, first, Hurricane Ian, we were not in the declaration area, so that's important to know. However, they will reimburse these level of costs. And obviously, we were coming with much higher, but it would be a different story. There looks like, and again, we will see as the federal, as Congress goes forward, that there is going to be a combined Fiona, Ian, and Nicole supplemental at the federal level. As in previous supplementals, particularly Irma, there is usually a clause, and that's what we're working with Congresswoman Salazar's office, to add in that states areas within the state that face similar threats. In other words, Sanibel, Key Biscayne, are authorized to do studies which could mitigate future damage. And that is in right now, if you look at Senator Rubio's initial request, although albeit quite high at $33 billion, at least it's a start, that language is currently in his initial request.
So the idea would be to capture the state and just kind of get an idea of what contingency funds could go for these repeated events, or did I understand that correctly?
It's got to be very specific. Supplementals are made specifically for a single storm. In other words, a declaration of emergency for that storm, right? There was one for Ian.
Right.
And then there was one for Nicole.
Right.
We were in Nicole's area. Less damage across the state, obviously, but still significant damage. State will fund what it can. Obviously, right now, the state coffers are they're going down with what's going on the West Coast. So there's going to be a need to go to FEMA, and that process is happening. My understanding is, after talking to the Congresswoman's office, is the current supplemental that we'll probably see coming forward in December will have Ukraine and COVID in it, but it has very little mention on the hurricane relief. That would probably be picked up under the next Congress, so likely February timeframe.
Okay.
And just to add to that, we do annually apply to the FDP's beach management program to try and secure whatever funds we can. And it's a ranking type program, and there's criteria that you meet or don't meet. Based on how many criteria you meet, you have a higher or lower score, and then depending on how much money the state actually has available, then they will make allocations based on your ranking. And sometimes we get and sometimes we don't, but we do apply to that every year.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's,
All those in favor?
hold on, Mr. Kaplan.
A thought provocation that occurs to me, because of the change in control in the Congress, I've thought it prudent to think about policies that are going to come out of this next Congress. And with the types of expenditures that are being funded for Ukraine and for other things, despite what I consider to be some forward-thinking legislation that came out recently, the reaction in the press to Ian especially included observations of unsustainable communities. And I think to just mention that that's a bad word for us and a worrisome thought involving a slippery slope if we go in that direction. So we should just be mindful. We assume for years that policy it was a certain way because it's always been that way. Right?
I would agree.
Enough said, but.
We're on this resolution, very specifically confirming the declaration of state of emergency.
All those
Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, authorizing the village manager to issue a work order to Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. for the planning and preparation of 30% design documents for the Crandon Boulevard Capital Project in an amount not to exceed $222,296 and providing for an effective date.
Move.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could make
Is there a
just.
second?
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Mr. Vasquez.
Mr. Mayor, if I can make one change in the resolution. We modified the 10% increase for contingency. However, what we did not do, if you go on the bottom of the first page of resolution, which is changing the matching funds, it currently says 112,087. The actual amount should be 132,296.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So it should be 132,296, which is our matching amount. And that makes the difference between the 10% contingency.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
This project is being partially funded by a municipal planning grant through the Miami-Dade TPO to the tune of $90,000. So the entire cost that we had negotiated before the contingency was about $202,000. With the contingency, it's $222 and some change. This is a 30% design project. It is an engineering project. The intent is to design Crandon Boulevard to be a multimodal corridor that facilitates traffic flow, reduces congestion, and makes a safe amenity for all residents, regardless of mobility or mode of travel. So this is sort of the next step after we've done a lot of studies and data collection and public works. We want to make sure that any future improvements we do to Crandon are in line with this 30% design. And eventually, the next 100% could be partially funded through other people's money. And as it follows, the construction could also be partially funded through other people's money. That's part of the benefit of having the TPO involved at the outset.
Questions to staff.
I have a
Mr.
question,
Vasquez.
Mr. Mayor, thank you so much. Question, it seems to me like this, from what I read on the grant, is it a mobility study? As we say design, I just want to kind of get a feel of, is it a municipal mobility plan that eventually is going to capture all modes of transportation and come up with some schematic solutions, right?
Yes, that's exactly it. So
Okay.
anyone that walks, runs, rolls
Right.
in any form, it's that kind of.
Which I think is fantastic and way overdue, and appreciate you guys moving forward with this. The only question I had was that I saw something about, final concept refine. We got a lot of stuff and great, everybody can multitask, but I want to make sure we don't get ahead of ourselves
Right.
on a lot of these things, because we're discussing vision and plan, we're discussing stormwater, we're talking
Exactly.
resiliency.
Yeah.
And all these things will eventually, not saying they will or not, but they could and likely, fall into some form of a criteria for this design. So my question is, would it be, and I'll leave it up to you guys, but would it be prudent at this point maybe to hold back a little bit on just finish the plan, right? Develop a mobility plan, and when it comes down to the concept refinement, let's wait until we get all these other ducks in a row. I'll leave you guys decide what would be best on that. That was just because I don't know where we're at on the other stuff. Maybe.
Yeah, look, I'll jump in on this one. So, the beauty of having a small staff is the staff talks with each other, right?
Yep.
So, the people working the vision plan, or the people working the resilience plan, or the people working the Crandon Boulevard plan. So it's not like, we're fighting through silos and trying to figure out what the other people are doing. So, yeah, if we feel like Stantec is getting way out in front of us, we'll certainly slow them down. Our hope, we're going to do a vision plan forum with the community at the beginning of December, and our hope that we can bring that back in January, maybe February at the latest, to the council for approval, right? And then we've got that document that's going to be the guide going forward. Simultaneously, our plan is to present the resilient infrastructure plan to you all in December as well. So we purposely timed this stuff for the new council coming on board so that you would see the projects that are going and the work that we've been doing that's setting the direction we're going in the future. So yes, this is a part of it, and obviously, if any of those get out in front of the other, we'll have to tell the consultant to slow down.
I think you're going to have some robust public input on this, likely, and
We're looking
that's.
forward to it.
But I noticed that they didn't put that consultants assume the public meetings will be held I don't know, did they allocate hours for that? I'm just saying heads up, that's all.
And
Just
that's
be
something
careful
that,
it doesn't
no,
get
that-
out of hand and,
Right.
you know,
No.
with the funding.
We're very excited about this particular project. We have Planning Director Jeremy, Jake, Roland, myself,
Awesome.
our engineer. Our idea is to take all of this existing information. Stantec is going to distill it for us in an existing conditions memorandum. They're going to run traffic models to figure out how we're currently functioning from a level of service standpoint. But ultimately, the concept development is going to be done in a room of all of us together with our consultants, going through different alternatives and scenarios, basically workshopping what those alternatives should be, and then we're going to let them develop them further and run their models on those alternatives. And then we're bringing that to the community with all of the answers to all the questions we can possibly think of for those alternatives, so that when the community asks, you know, how does this impact this intersection? How wide is the sidewalk or the bike lane going to be at this particular spot? We'll have those answers, and they'll be able to give us strong feedback that we'll incorporate into a final design that'll take 30%.
Mr. Vasquez?
I'm good, thank you, Mayor.
On this side, Mr. London?
How many years has it been, and how much do we pay Joe Corradino to do the study of Crandon Boulevard? And what do we do with the study, except read it when we got done with it?
That study will be informing the design of the boulevard. So the study that Corradino did, correct me if I'm wrong, is assessing the function of the roadway. And all of that information is going to inform the design, because they've identified some pain points for us, and that'll be brought into it. We're not redoing or having any redundancies on the data collection front.
The other thing, for those new members of the council, I think you were on the council at the time with the dog park. Stantec's a big operation, big company, does lots of work. And we employed them to do the dog park. And they did a fine job on the dog park. It was such a fine job, I think we had 14 people were going to bid, but after they came to the pre-bid with Stantec, we got down to 1. And as a result, we paid a fortune. I think we paid them $135,000 plus extras for the design of the dog park. And if you've all been to the dog park, you can see how complicated the design is. I'm being sarcastic. The next thing happened was that the design builder who did Miami, I guess they call it, just north of the Venetian Causeway on the Miami side, he was a bidder. He was going to be a bidder. He had charged $400,000 to do that whole park on the design bid. But when he came here with the Stantec thing, he looked at everything else, he decided not to bid. So we're down to one bidder because the Stantec's detailed requirements or whatever. So if we're going to use them, we have to be aware that this might cost us a lot more than any other engineer that does this firm. So I am going to obviously be against anything has to do with Stantec. But I just want you to know the history that we've had with Stantec in the past.
Just to let you know, council member, this is under one of our continuing service agreements, which has a standard price for any of the contractors who would have
I'm not talking about the price. I'm talking about
the bid
the work they
documents.
did, what it did to our costs, not what we paid them.
So I will say that our staff is very knowledgeable in the field of engineering, and 30% design is not 100% design. I'm pretty confident that we could have some strong QA/QC on our side. Our new engineer, Farhat Ake, is fantastic. Jake's an engineer. I worked at a transportation engineering firm for a year and a half before. We have some expertise on staff now that can hold them accountable for the designs and be able to QA/QC that.
I just want the rest of the council to know our experience with Stantec, okay?
I appreciate
And we
that.
might be getting doing, and I'm not criticizing or saying that you guys aren't competent, because I know you
course
are.
not.
The question is, they're going to do the design.
Mhm.
They're going to come with the numbers, not with the numbers. We'll find out when we bid it what it's going to cost us. And so I just think that, not the cost of Stantec, I'm talking about the work product. Not that it's going to be a bad work product. It might be a wonderful work product. But it's like instead of taking a rubber band, you take a whole dam to stop something. And that's all. I mean, it's called overkill.
And they are required to provide us 3 options, so we can pick, bits and pieces of each one. So the actual contract requires 3 options.
I'm not talking about the contract. I'm talking about the way they're going to spec it out. That's all.
Yeah.
And you and I have been around long enough, Steve, and you know when an engineering firm specs it out, and especially when they spec it out, there's always the favorite contractor who's going to be really the best person qualified for that job. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but I've been around too long and seen it done too many times, and it costs the village
Okay,
a lot
staff,
of money for nothing.
you know what to look for.
Yes,
All right.
it's very helpful.
Yeah, I mean,
Mr.
so, I mean, again, we had the same issue when it came with the 530 Park.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, great design, but the specs were such a high level that when we got the price, we had to go back to you guys and say, oh, we weren't expecting that. Now, how do we backtrack? And it took another 2 years out, and we're going all over the place. So we don't want to make that mistake again. One of the questions I have is what Councilmember Vasquez brought up. You know, if they don't do phase 2 of the of their portion, is that still enough that we can send that to a design build firm that they could properly give it, or they would need the phase 2 in order to properly go out there?
We would need to bring it up to 30% design.
You have to bring it up to 30%. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just wanted to make sure that, you know, because obviously this could be built in many different ways, but if we wanted to do design build, I don't want to go over the process that they would have to just redo everything anyways.
I understand what you're saying. The way I understand the best way the design build works is you bring it to a certain portion of design instead of letting the contractor take it from like 0% to 100.
Exactly.
You want a little bit.
They need
of
a
an
design
expertise.
criteria to bid against, and then they'll take the design from there on.
It's almost too open-ended if you do it
So
the other way.
so they need that in order to give a proper bid.
Right.
Okay. And then in this process, then I think that we really need to be on top of what that budget's going to be so that we're making sure that they're speccing it correctly in order to get the right price that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Not, you know, we don't want to do it cheaply, but we want to do it efficiently, right? So not always do we need the best things, you know, the top specs on there. So yeah, so as long as that we have that process, I think that's very important.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez.
Just one quick item, Mayor. Great opportunity here, and by the way, excellent job. Thank you for looking at mobility. I see here the issue of drainage. A great opportunity to use Crandon to collect as much runoff that goes through it. You know, what they call it pass-through runoff. So I think it's a great opportunity to look at this in a way that can help us, you know.
Yeah, I think
Capture as much water that's coming in on the other side and ending up by the school.
Yeah, I think that that's an excellent opportunity, and I know AECom is sort of our stormwater engineers on record right now, and I don't see any reason why they couldn't be involved in a conversation.
This would be Stantec that would be looking at this.
Yeah, Stantec would look at it, yeah, but if there's a system-wide plan that AECom's designing, we wouldn't want Stantec to look at Crandon
Now,
Boulevard
does
separate from
FDOT look at, I'm sorry, would this be the design, the drainage would be only for the corridor? Or would it accept
they're
flow
looking at the
from other
drainage
places?
for the corridor, because if you're changing curb cuts in any way, or
Right.
depending on if your bike lane is raised or lowered, you're gonna have to consider where the water's flowing and how that goes into the existing system.
I mean, for the benefit of the council, I mean, there's a lot of water that just sheets flow right through Crandon at certain points
Yeah.
and meanders and finds its way to lowest point. So perhaps we have an opportunity here to capitalize on this project.
Yeah.
And
And
this
add
will
it to
be,
the
yeah, this
resiliency
will
part
be,
of it.
you know, she mentioned, you know, the work that AECom is doing for a stormwater system. As they're doing the full village-wide assessment right now, part of that obviously is going to be Crandon Boulevard. That information will be integrated into this design and vice versa, right? So what, again, what Stantec's doing, what
Yeah, I can see
AECom
it's going to be a lot of
Yeah.
coordination on that. That was my initial,
Right.
highlight, which is, let's just keep a tight leash on the consultant.
One more shot?
I'm good.
No, actually, this is to you, because you're the most knowledgeable guy in the room. This is a county road. Why are we spending any money on a county road? And if we're spending money on a county road, is there any way we can recover any of this money? Because basically, it's their road, it's their responsibility. What can we do, or what can you do, since you're the man with the county?
So this is good. The manager and I are having those conversations. We're going to be getting with the mayor in December. But I think staff wants to make an analysis of, I mean, if we're going to be putting so much attention to this road, should we just take over the road and let's see how much it's going to cost us? Because it's an issue that keeps coming up. we're devoting so much time to this roadway. It's so important to us. And for me, this is a really, really important project. What you and I heard on the campaign trail was, let's talk about traffic flow and let's talk about safety intersections. We can't screw this up. This is very important. We got to get this done. Now, to Ed's question, Steve, you want to jump in as to what you guys are analyzing?
Yeah, so there's two things. First, we'll be bringing forward, I hope in January, obviously it has to do when the interlocal agreement for the $460,000 that the county is going to give us on road impact fees for the first two intersections. So the county is paying for a part of this road.
Okay.
And when that goes through the Board of County Commissioners, we'll then bring our project forward to begin the construction there. Secondly, what the mayor is talking about, and it's something we're working with the attorney, and then we're going to have to look in much more deeply at the state and the county level, is do we want to take over Crandon Boulevard? And there's a lot of homework to do that. Like, we got to investigate. Obviously, from an ordinance and enforcement perspective, the answer is yes. But when you take over a road, you also buy the maintenance, repair, and construction, right? So, so what cost liability are we assuming over a period of time? So we need to find out from the state and the county how much money, since this is State Road 913, however, it's completely been transferred over to the county. So there's assumption, we don't know that for a fact, but there's an assumption that the state is paying the county a certain amount of money to maintain that road. We want to know how much that money is, and if it's, if we do a net present value over time, and it turns out, I got you on that one, didn't I? So net present value over time, and it turns out to be, favorable to us, then it's something we'll talk about. But we owe that research back to the council. And so we're going to work that. That's one of our legislative agendas this year. How do we address all the way from construction all the way down to chief being able to enforce scooter law on our Crandon Boulevard.
Good, thank you.
All right.
Anything else you want to add?
Councilwoman?
So Ed brought up the Corradino study, so I don't need to, but the one thing that I heard that I think is really important, and those of us who have sat here and seen some frustrating things, the idea of staff really working very hard overseeing what our consultants are doing and making sure they don't get too far ahead of themselves, or when you need to bring in AECom or someone else, that stuff is happening. I think we really save money when that happens, and we end up not having to do things more than once. So I liked that I heard that, and I hope that we do it and do it well. The other thing is, in terms of trying to get the county to give some money, I just wanted to remind everyone of the arrangement we had worked out with them with the smart lights originally, which we ended up not actually following through on, but the idea of you're going to have to pay this money at some point. If we pay it now, will you give it back to us when this project comes up on your list? That we've managed to do that somewhat successfully before, so maybe that's an option for us to do.
It is, and that's how we got the money for the two intersections. We had requested the money from the county. We hoped to get it from the state. When we talked to the state, they told us they had transferred the road to the county. County came back and said, okay, so we have $460,000 in road impact fees. Obviously, $460,000 versus what the cost of this is going to be is very different. But again, it's something that we need to work with and maintain those relationships with the county to see if they can pay at least a part of it.
Okay, let's move on.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. The next item, Mr. Mayor, is public comments.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you would like to speak during tonight's public comments, please listen to the following instructions. If you've joined in Zoom, please click the raise hand button. You will be unmuted when it's your turn to speak. If you are watching on television or streaming live from our website, please call 305-365-7569 and enter the following meeting ID, 231-627-8415, followed by pound, then press 9. When it is your turn to speak, you will be called upon by the last 4 digits of your telephone number. Press star 9 to raise your hand, and when called upon, press star 6 to unmute yourself.
Okay, public comments, part 2. Can we talk about that later?
We do have someone.
Yes, we do.
Yes, go ahead. State your name and.
Yes, this is Robert D'Souza from 785 Glenridge Road. I just wanted to thank the council for all its great service, and I'm looking forward to a great new year with this great council put together. Thank you all.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, yes, you need to fill out a form, but come on up and speak and then fill out the form.
Thank you. Good evening. Michael Polakov, 151 Crandon Boulevard, Key Biscayne, a city we know well. It's by total coincidence that I want to mention something in regard to the road issue you just discussed. So just as you have all decided to serve, I also believe in the concept of letting no good deed go unpunished. So I have joined the Key Colony HOA board. In terms of what was discussed about the Corradini study, which I saw when I had the pleasure to meet with Chief Press just before his departure, there's no question that the change in demographic of Key Colony is causing a beautiful backup every single day, especially coming into the island in the morning and leaving in the afternoon. So it's by coincidence that this evening when I saw Chief Souza, I mentioned to him that I'd like to make an appointment to see what we can do to work on this and get a solution instead of just rehashing it over and over.
Great.
I can't speak to your love or hate, Mr. London, of the Corradini study, but any of you who are on the board, especially our wonderful new civil engineer, who can help guide me, I will put in all the time necessary so that before we get into full season, we can hopefully offer something to help give a solution at last. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also have Marcelo Radici. Speak on public comments.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor, Village Manager. Marcelo Radice, 70 Bay Heights Drive. I've been a resident of Key Biscayne on and off for the past 26 years. 8 of the last years I've been in Bay Heights. I'm currently the consultant operator, Key Bis Soccer, that runs the Key Biscayne Soccer Club, along with Sophia. I came tonight because I saw on the agenda that there was going to be discussion about the field allocation, and I just wanted to bring to your attention that there's a study that's being done, because many of the new members may not know that, but the Village Athletic Advisory Board is working on putting together an analysis across all of the different outdoor sports that'll address, I think, this issue. I don't know if it's already been addressed, but I think it's important because over the past 5 years, there's been an undercurrent on the island that, because we have such a high-profile sport, we are the largest sport on the island, and we tend to dominate the fields that are most noticeable, those being the village fields. That we have other sports that are allocated a significant amount of space, and when the study comes out, I think you'll find that soccer overall, although we're accused of being a monopoly and arrogant, we quite frankly actually have less space per registered player, or when you add it, you can slice it and analyze it by number of program hours that are allocated to each program. Soccer falls well below the other sports when it comes to the number of hours or square footage that's allocated to those programs. So I think we have to sit down and try to educate a lot of the people on the island, because they tend to be a knee-jerk reaction here that soccer is this big monster behemoth that prevents other sports from growing and thriving. On the contrary, we've always pulled back. We've given more space to the other sports. We allow flag football to come back and thrive. We allowed the other sports when rugby came along, when field hockey started to grow, baseball has diminished. Unfortunately, we know what happened with American football and the changes. Our demographics have changed significantly out here. You all know, and the primary sport that every child wants to play for the most part is soccer. They come here with soccer first mentality. We don't have any more space. So I hope the challenge going forward with all of you as you address this is, what do we do with space and how do we find an equitable allocation? And I hope that study that will come out will support what I just said. And then finally, I just wanted to address one issue here. I wasn't going to address it, but again, we've been Key Biscayners and lifers on this island for a long time managing this program, and we did it for many years as volunteers. For 5 years prior to doing that, I was the commissioner of soccer, doing it on a volunteer basis. So I have a vested interest in this island because I love this island, and I don't have a child playing in this sport anymore. I had a daughter who played here, and I do this because I want to make this the best program and offer the best services for all of our age groups. And now we've gotten to a point where we give a lot of our kids those
Marcelo, can you
pathways.
wrap up?
And so thank you for that, and I'll be here to address any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have Jackie Kellogg didn't speak. You're good, okay. Any other cards?
No, Mr. Mayor. The next item is reports and recommendations. Village manager, manager's report.
So good evening, Mr. Mayor, and welcome. And we actually got it done 20 minutes before the deadline, so I'm very impressed with the speed at which we're moving.
You ain't seen nothing yet, baby.
Let's make it happen. So I just saw with impeccable timing, Todd walked in after sweating at the Virginia Kid Advisory Board in the city of Miami. So he'll be up to talk a little bit about our youth programs.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Todd, did they miss me over there?
Of course. It wasn't the
Okay.
same without you running the meeting. So the two things that we wanted to highlight with the youth programs is our Friday night happenings, which is a new program and we've noticed, which probably most of you have noticed, or all of you probably have noticed, that the kids hang out on Friday nights without much to do. They meander around the island, and we're trying to give program alternatives to get them in the community center, doing something active and structured. So every Friday we have a different activity that we've been doing, and sometimes we get a great attendance and sometimes we don't, but we'll just keep at it and see if we can get them drawn into the community center. And then I wanted to highlight the girls volleyball program, had a great season and wrapped up, and basketball under new management has started with record registration. We're very pleased with that, but just like some of the earlier topics, we're limited in space, but I think we're gonna have a great basketball program this year. We continued our monthly meetups for girls, which has been interesting new direction, talking about socio-emotional health with the girls. It's been well attended, and we look forward to continuing those programs. And then the manager started a new initiative where he appointed or just gathered an athletic fields fact-finding committee. And we had an initial meeting, and this is to get some fresh eyes on a problem that we're all aware of. Where should we look to find additional playing space for our children? So we had our initial meeting. We're meeting again December 6th, and we're providing them any resources they need, and hopefully they'll come with a new perspective on an old problem and point us in a direction that'll address this issue.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
I keep hearing this 13 to 17 age group, that's a difficult group to try to find programs and things for. Your thoughts on that,
It is. Obviously, once a child gets a driver's license and a car, there's a lot of alternatives, but like I mentioned, the basketball program, we're going all the way to 18. And it looks like we're going to have 3 or 4 teams in that older division. So that's a positive outcome. We're always looking at different ways of attracting them. Where you're going to find a lot of them is in the weight room at the community center at 5 o'clock. That's been a really positive experience to see them all gather. But we're always open to suggestions and alternatives and different approaches. And we'll keep working at it until we find ways that get them more involved in our programming.
Yes, Councilwoman.
On this same topic, how are you publicizing the Friday night teen activities? Is it just open to people who are members of the community center, or can you pay to go for the night?
You can always, the way we look at it is everybody's a member of the community center, just how you choose to pay for it. So if you want to pay for the day, there's a day pass, or you want to have a membership. So that program's available to them. And currently it's in our weekly email blast, which maybe is a good point. We should get it into the Village Connect.
Yeah, well, Village Connect, and also I think if you could reach out to some of the PTAs and the PTSA at MAST, they have, people in each grade level chat. Mm-hmm. You know how moms love the chats. Mm-hmm. But it is really how we get a lot of information. So, and I know I haven't seen it come my way. So that would be helpful, I think. And then another question about follow-up on the weight room. You used to have a class that was like, you basically got like certified to be allowed to use the weight room. Do you guys still offer that, or is there a way to bring that back?
No, we're looking to restart that with the same instructor and get him back. It was a etiquette, courtesy, and safety class that would allow children younger to use the gym if they went through the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
Just to add one other thing is that, the youth council, which was coming up on the discussion item, but that's also an avenue that I think could be very useful of reaching out and engaging the teenagers. So, I guess we can discuss it in more detail when it comes up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next item.
Thank you, Todd. So the next one, I'd like to bring Jake up, but I just want to say right now, and this is something that is just completely outstanding. We are now down to 6 homes that are not connected to sewer lines. So well done by Jake, and just give us a quick update on where we are.
Thank you, Manager. So we are about 99.9% compliance with septic tanks. Again, there's 6, there's an enforcement, and there are some others that under permitting right now. And but those 6, we kind of hit a plateau, and being coordinated with the county to see if we can have county help us push them to connect. And that's pretty much where we are in the septic. Again, we did spent a good effort on connecting everybody. Manager, would you like to give update on FPL?
Through the chair real quick, just a question.
We have a question for you.
Sure. Just a quick question. All 6 of those properties, do they have homes on them, or are they vacant lands that haven't built a home on it yet, and that's why?
They are existing homes, their homes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Vasquez?
You mentioned the county. I know they got a program going on for septic tanks. Isn't this part of their cost? Why would we bank that? Yeah.
So it's a little bit different. What county does is actually bring sewer to areas that are not sewered. Our issue is everybody's fronted by the sewer. It's just that the homeowner make an effort to connect to it. That's
It's the connection part of it?
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
it's the responsibility of the
Yeah.
homeowner to connect the,
Yeah. The Connect to Protect program, I think that's what it's called in the county, it's actually bringing sewer line to areas that doesn't exist.
But the homeowner doesn't connect to the sewer. The county makes the connection into the main pipe, right? I would say.
No, the homeowner, actually, they bring the house connection to clean out to their property line, and then it's homeowner's responsibility to connect to that line. For example, in the Key Biscayne project, they were given 10 years to connect to it. So there are different triggers. If you demo your house and you build a new house, you have to connect it. If your septic tank failed, you weren't permitted to repair, you have to connect, or 10 years, whichever comes first. And in the 6 homes, they exhausted all the
Yeah.
options, and they're in violation.
Saying the county's got a nice program with funding with
Yeah.
Mayor Cava, so it may be an opportunity.
oh, I think we're at the point where, with 6 left, I don't think that would be appropriate after everyone else has spent their money to do it, that we would pay for the 6 people who have been delinquent for now over close to 12 years, right?
Right. And again, all this work has to be done on private property. It's the public property work is done.
Okay.
And there's 2 other items before I'm going to have Jake give us an FPL update. There is an area, correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, but it's the Palmwood Redwood area where we need to do an actual sewer line so that we can connect the, what are there, about 6 houses on that?
4, another 4.
4 houses. So why don't you just give a little update on that?
So there are, when the project
It's not
was
Frank's
done-
house, by the way.
Right.
Thanks for the clarification. I would worry about that.
Yeah, and when the project was done about 10 or so years ago, there are some houses left out somehow. We don't know. It was left out. And actually, 2 of them was left out, and one of them it was built so high that the house cannot connect with gravity, which they have to have a pump station, which is not really designed for a single-family home. So that's actually our responsibility to fix it, because in essence, they paid for it, just didn't get the benefit of the project 10 years ago. So that's the effort that we are having to design that and could actually bring the house connection in front of those houses. But then again, it will be their responsibility to connect their sewer connection to that house connection to the cleanout.
So those are just additional 4 houses. As we were going through and kind of doing an audit of who was not on sewer, we identified these additional homes.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So those 4 are addition to the 6.
They're addition to the 6. So we have total of 30 in progress, and the 6 is, the 6 homes that we identified has taken no action whatsoever.
And we've had conversations with them.
We have reached out to them a number of times, and some of them actually been issued violation by Durham. And but again, it's a long process, and we just have to get it speed up a little bit faster.
Thank you.
Okay, next item.
So we're going to have one of the items that was, if you'd step still up there, requested during the last meeting was to give an update on the FPL transmission line project in Crandon Park. So he's going to give us an update of where we are and when the anticipated completion date is.
Okay. As far as the civil work is concerned, the only remaining piece left is by the entry block. So the line that connects from Crandon Boulevard to the substation, and FPL experienced some setbacks. When they were doing the trench work, the water rushed in and they couldn't do the work. So long story short, they are actually securing a permit this week to install a shallow well, so they can actually dewater the area and install the last missing piece. That's going to be done hopefully this week, and then from that point on, they told me that it's going to take them about 3 months to pull all the wires on the entire project. But again, the pulling wires is not going to have any impact on the traffic. It's going to be done off hours. They're not going to close any lanes. So we are thinking by March of next year will be final restoration of the roadway. That's their schedule.
Okay. Let's keep going.
Mr. Mayor, next up.
Sorry, when they pull the, quick question, when they pull the wires, do they open the roadway again?
No, so they're going to pull the wires between those manholes that's already installed.
Okay, that's all.
So, Mr. Mayor, and obviously you and I had a long conversation. In fact, we've talked to both of our representatives about this. Next up is both our appropriations as well as our legislative agenda for the coming state fiscal year, FY 23-24. First one is a village-wide immediate flood control and mitigation project. We're requesting $450,000 for that. Second is a matching fund for the United States Army Corps of Engineers. We've put aside $500,000. We will ask the state to match that money at $400,000 so that we can have the share of the money that we need for the 25% of the cost of the potential project. Thirdly, it says $475,000 there for beach sand replacement. Again, we'll see which way that goes. That was the amount that we estimated we lost during Ian. Since Nicole has come, we've estimated now it's closer to about $2.8 million. So that's something we'll work with our legislatures to see if appropriations is the right approach or whether it might be an FDEP or an FDEM approach for getting that funded. Next is the beach path access, public beach access pathway, and that is for the one at Commodore Club South. As you know, we've just about completed the one at Sands, and we should be bringing forward the Commodore Club South easement in December. Once that's done, obviously we need to then do the work to make sure that we can access the beach. And again, obviously the purpose is to get people to the beach, but also part of the requirement is by the Corps of Engineers. In order for us to get funding from the Corps, we must have a beach access every quarter of a mile. Next one is a sargassum seaweed removal and composting pilot project. We're going to keep trying. We think we have a great idea, a great opportunity of waste that sits on our beach. We spend close to $900,000 a year, if not more, hauling basically 80 to 90% water away. There's got to be a better way to do it, and we're going to pitch this as an opportunity to be a pilot site or a pilot project for the entire state. And lastly, as we did this past year, requesting money for our senior program, we're going to go this year and ask for our special needs program, asking $100,000 to support our special needs program. And the intent for that is to invest and kick off this program and then really understand what it takes to run this type of program in the village. So those are the appropriations requests. The legislative priorities that we're looking at is, as we mentioned before, investigating the potential transfer of the jurisdiction of Crandon Boulevard, what that means, weigh the pros and cons, and then also looking separately, but obviously they all have the same end state, is how do we better improve the regulation to enable us to enforce golf cart operation, electric scooter operation, and also motorized and electric bicycles within the village.
Can we do a motion to accept these as our state legislative priorities?
Move.
I have a motion and I have a second.
Second.
Discussion on the item.
Joe.
Yes, sir.
You say within the village. I thought we had the jurisdiction within the village. I thought the only the only jurisdiction we didn't have was on Crandon Boulevard.
Yeah, it's within Crandon Boulevard, yes.
So basically, we can regulate everything within our streets.
Well, there are some issues, and I'll let Chad answer that question specific, but yeah, primarily it's about Crandon Boulevard. And there are some other anomalies that I think Chad could answer.
Yeah, the primary jurisdictional issue is Crandon, but our enforcement varies depending on the type of mobility that we're talking about, golf cart, scooter, e-bikes. So we'd like to seek some clarifications to make it easier for us to enforce.
Well, do we actually, in our legislative package, do we try to have some legislation introduced statewide to change the bicycle?
Yeah, that's what we're going to be drafting with our lobbyists and with the administration.
Thank you.
On the same item, yes, Mr. Vasquez.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I love the idea of the algae thing, and there was something going on, I think, in Central Florida where they were doing similar, but with blue-green algae, where they're turning that into energy. I don't know if this is something that we could work at a local level or maybe work regionally with Miami Beach or other places that may be affected by it, perhaps just a suggestion on building more force and more strength. But I think it's very opportune. I think there's a possibility that we could harvest this algae and then, grind it, turn it, and turn into some, send it to the plant to some cogen facility there for additional energy. I think it'd be great if you can get that.
Fertilizer, it could be energy, it could be a lot of things, yeah. We have a great advocate in Commissioner Regalado. This is something she's very passionate about. And so, when the mayor and I meet with her soon, we'll ask her if this is something that she would like to go in partnership with us. Is there a county-state potential here where maybe county and state puts some money in? Because obviously this isn't just solving our problem, right? This is we're a 1.2 mile beach.
Right,
There's a
I
lot
think
of
you
other
can
beaches
find some
in
good
Miami-Dade County.
partners throughout the coastal communities that are eventually affected by the same thing.
Exactly.
And we have 3 different plants, north, south, and central, so send it there.
Mr. Kaplan.
It is an extraordinarily good idea. Is there, without diluting the importance of this very good idea, is there any discussion regionally about food waste composting? And is that something that makes sense if there was a receptivity at the legislature to try to tie that into algae composting, seaweed composting?
Well, Rowan, if you could come up, and I know that we've talked about, and I think that actually would have to be a component of this because, algae actually wouldn't compost naturally by itself. You have to put some other things in. Obviously, I don't want to speak out of turn, but we'll let the doctor follow up. He's a little hurt there. He can make it.
The lowest in the food chain.
Just messed up my.
Working out? That's up, really.
Seaweed composting is a little tricky. The economics, people are struggling to figure out the economics of composting and whether or not it makes business sense. There's also this other challenge, which is trace metals in seaweed. Analyses are being done. The jury's still out as to whether or not the trace metals exceed certain thresholds for it to be a commercially available product. There's work that's being done by the University of Miami through a grant that they got in analyzing the trace metals in compost. Those results aren't out yet. There is a company that's doing some interesting work, basically extracting the micronutrients from seaweed. That's a company out of St. Lucia. They have a distribution center here in Doral. One of the things that we've spoken to Commissioner Regalado about is seeing if there's a way that the county can work with this company to get the company to set up a facility here in South Florida, somewhere in Homestead, where they could take seaweed from the coastal communities of Miami-Dade County as well as Monroe. That's an ongoing effort that we try and help out by making connections for folks. So we're exploring different avenues of pursuit as to what could realistically be done with seaweed other than what we're doing with it now. And it's just an ongoing effort in hopes that...
If you could, though, Rowan, I recall, and I may not have it correctly, but when we were talking pure composting, not necessarily the extraction of the nutrients, wasn't there also a need in order to make that a proper composting to add like something like a food waste as well?
Yeah, there is.
So that may be something that we can marry together, bring food waste and combine it with, if we're, composting is obviously one thing, extraction of the nutrients would be a different process.
In thinking about the economics, which is indeed a wrestling match of some complication, the complete and utter deprivation of existing landfills factors into that question.
Sure, yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay. Yes.
Really, just dumb idea, but I figure I'd roll it
There's
off
no
anyway.
such thing as a dumb idea, Councilmember London.
So basically, we've got all this material, and we're trucking it away, and then processing it. Somebody's processing it or burying it or doing something with it. And it comes from the sea. What would stop us, or anybody else, instead of doing that, to load it on a barge instead of loading on a thing? And every time we get a barge full, we tow it out to sea and dump it in the water where it came from.
You know, I mean, I think that people have
second coming.
explored that.
I'm sorry?
I think that people have explored that before. I don't know how successful they were in being allowed to do that.
Well, it's where it came from, right?
If you want me to look into it, I'd be happy to.
No, I was just
Councilmember
thinking
London.
about that. Basically, we'd have a thing in shallow water, pretty much flat bottom. Instead of loading trucks, we load the thing up. You don't have to tow it out too far and dump it where it came from. It's much less expensive than trucking it away.
I don't know that you can safely make that assumption that it would
I
be
said
much
should
less
be. I didn't say is.
expensive. Nothing that you do on the ocean is inexpensive. So if that's something that you want to direct staff to look into, then we'll look into it and we'll report back to you.
Well, I guess, is that the will of the council? We check these things out?
Mayor, can I add something to that?
Yes.
I mean, I would think that when you take it out, it just comes back. And then I would also think that if other municipalities start doing it, it's going to shift into other places and people are going to start being upset with Miami Beach putting it out in front of us and it's all coming back into us and now we have to deal with it. It seems like you're just kicking the can down the road. I would end up, I mean, if that's where it's coming from, it feels like you're just putting it back in the fan and it's shooting back at
Well, basically, I'm saying take it out. Yeah, they'll be drifting further down.
There's another
That's not good either for someone
little
else.
there's another little catch, and I'm happy to like brainstorm this with you. But there's not just seaweed in the stuff that ends up on our beaches. There's a lot of plastics. There's a lot of other garbage in the seaweed that I'm sure no one would appreciate having it brought back out to the ocean. So,
All right, why
there's a lot
don't
of
you,
different
why don't you
issues.
two discuss this offline and see if there's something to it, we can come back to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say pretty much everything else I was going to say someone already did, but I love that, earlier I think Brett was talking about us being a leader and really trying to be in the forefront of things, and the idea that we're pushing forward with this sargassum issue. I mean, it's a worldwide problem.
Yep.
I love the fact that we're going to solve the world's problem, I think. And additionally with the e-bikes and the scooters, like we've looked at this so long and so hard, and what we've learned is that the technology of these vehicles has advanced beyond the laws that we could use to govern. So I think it's amazing, and I like seeing Key Biscayne right out there. So thank you.
Okay, so that takes us through number 6.
There was a motion made. Can I take,
Didn't we approve it already?
no.
No?
All
Okay.
those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, issues that are,
Mr. Mayor, before we close out the manager's report, there was a requirement from the last council meeting for me to come back to the council on an update on Bear Cut Bridge. I did provide that in the November 18th weekly update to the council. I could repeat that if you'd like, or whether people are comfortable with that report that they received 2 Fridays ago. Would have been.
I repeat it.
say again?
I wasn't around, so if you could repeat it, it'd be great.
Okay, so just to be clear, and I think it's important that as we look at what's going on Rickenbacker Causeway and Bear Cut Bridge, there's a number of different things going on. One, there's the short-term solutions for Rickenbacker Causeway, and those are the safety directed issues that we're working with Public Works on. The second one is a Rickenbacker Causeway Master Plan. Again, something we're working with Public Works. And they are in the process of hiring a consultant to work with us to put together the master plan. That's Rickenbacker.
Mr. Manager, you want to emphasize Public Works at the county so that people understand. Is that what you meant?
Well, I was thinking it was Jake, but no, yeah, it's the Department of Transportation and Public Works.
Okay.
Yes, sir. That's Rickenbacker Causeway, but very specifically on Bear Cut Bridge, there are 3 things that are going on at Bear Cut Bridge. What kicked off on November 16th, they held their first meeting for what is called the Rehabilitation Project. And what that is, that's a 10-year requirement from FDOT for them to go out, do the investigation, determine what maintenance and repair is required to keep that bridge sustainable and working. That was something that I believe was completed in 2014. Again, we're back around for that 10-year process. So that is moving forward as we speak. And that was the first community meeting on November 16th. The second part is the actual replacement project. We just saw the scope of work, the solicitation for the PD&E contract, the Project Development and Environmental Study Project, the project that'll go through the entire NEPA process. We've been told it's going to go out in December, and with Speedy County solicitation, they anticipate to award that in September of next year. That is a 2 to 3 year project. So we would see, let's talk, what is next year, September 2023. Worst case scenario, that PD&E would be done in 2026. From that PD&E, they would then do design and then construction, with probably the earliest date of construction start would be 2030. So that's the second thing that's going on in Bear Cut Bridge. The third thing is, after what we saw happen at the Sanibel Causeway, the emergency manager from the county reached out to us, as did Jimmy Morales, and said, we need to take a look at the existing Bear Cut Bridge contingency plan. So me, Chief Lang, and Chief Souza, as well as Jake, are doing exactly that. We're going through the process. We believe the county plan is good, a couple tweaks, but what we need work on is we need to work on our plan. It needs to be much more detailed. So we're working through that. We hope to take a trip out to Lee County mid-December, just to get some lessons learned, best practice of what they experienced. And then our hope is, not our hope, our plan is, and we're working with the county, is we would get back with them second week, third week of January, and then late January, early February, then we would sit down with state and any federal agencies that we need to discuss to make sure that they know exactly what they need to do if the bridge were to fail. So those are the three things that are going on: rehab, replacement, and then assessing the contingency plan.
The contingency plan is very important, so let's make sure that prior to our next hurricane season, we got that under control.
Yeah, and that's our intent. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, let's keep going.
Next up is the capital improvement plan.
Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of an update on a few of our capital projects. We have a PowerPoint with some images of Beach Park. We are doing a full design of Beach Park that's going to include a new splash pad, new playground, new landscaping, a different kind of entrance into the beach area, and new restrooms as well. But in the meantime, we thought we'd do some heavy maintenance to bring that park up to our standards. We have repainted all of the facilities. We've replaced the turf on the East Palm Garden. I don't know if you've been there, but there's yellow caution tape around there to let the turf set a little bit, try to keep people off. We've relocated the bike racks away from the beach area and into the area between the two restrooms. It's a little easier to park your bike not in the sand. We relocated the trash can that was obstructing the view for people sitting in the Adirondacks to the other side, which makes a lot of sense. Now it's its own area. And we've repaired the boardwalk. There's some clean areas. Sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. I know what to do. Sorry. There we go. That's better. And we've completely power washed all the hardscape. And the next piece of this is to replace a few of the wood border around the cobblestone area by the beach side, because that needs to be replaced. And we're considering installing very low profile adult exercise equipment on the east side of the restrooms, or the east side of the shower area, kind of behind the beach raker parking. It's phase 0. Yeah. This is where the bike racks are. You can kind of see it. This is a picture of the new color. It's very close to the darker terracotta, but in person, this is a little bit more of a vibrant coral. This is some photos of new landscape that we've planted where the landscape wasn't doing so well. So those are now there. And that's a photo of the trash can that's been relocated. And I don't know if you remember, but after Hurricane Ian, there was a ton of sand in this area. So we've had that shoveled out so people can see the pavers. I think that's.
And I encourage you to, if you haven't been there recently, to go down there and take a look at it. That they've done some very good work down there. Just doing maintenance and repair, cleaning it up, cutting back the brush. And have we got the sod in yet? We do, right?
Yeah.
And
the
sodding the
pump. It looks
front
really
grass area as well. Very impressive work.
Yes, and the current design is being developed where we actually just had a kickoff meeting for the 90% phase today, and the expected start date is summer 2023 for construction. So we'll keep you informed as that goes on, and at the December meeting, we'll do a full update with the new design for you. We're finalizing the 30% as we speak, so we want to give that to you with phases and costs and things like that in December.
Any comments?
Okay.
It's a great project.
Just something to think about that I noticed is that it looks a little awkward to me, but the location of the benches seem that they would be better located on the north side of the path.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. I mean, if you're there with kids, they're not running behind you. You don't have anybody behind you. The other reason is that in the winter months, you're getting a lot more sun coming in, so you have those front trees will actually bring shade in towards the back. But when you're in the front like that, you may be actually blasted by the sun. So just an idea of possibly moving those over.
Yes, I agree with you on that. From an urban design standpoint, no one wants to feel like there's somebody walking behind them. It's a little disconcerting, but we did that because of the way the park is currently used. There's people that have their kids and they play on the green space. And Todd has noted that people get ready on those benches to then go play on the green space. So the orientation is so that people can basically just sit and watch their kids play. But it might not necessarily be needed given the new design. We're going to have some different types of seating at the far end. And we can revisit moving them because it's not difficult to move. But I would agree with you, it doesn't look quite right, but maybe functionally it fits the current need. It might need to be modified as the need changes.
Okay, thank you.
The next piece I want to touch on is the Hampton Park project. We have been in continual conversations with the community on this, and where we stand is we want to make this an amenity for the neighborhood. It's a beautiful little pocket park. The residents have put a ton of time and effort into making it what it is, and we feel that with the improvements that we're doing, we can maintain it better in a more efficient way from a financial and manpower standpoint that's still consistent with the intent and the design of the original park. And we're in constant communication with the residents around that area. And I know it looks like there's a lot going on right now, but a lot of the changes are something that we heard that the residents wanted at the outset, but weren't able to do at that time. Like the grading, for example, they weren't able to do the earthwork that they had intended, which is why some of the green space in that green area is dead because water ponds and it doesn't flow out. But the more general scope of what we're doing is we're redoing the pavers on it was a limestone aggregate that was that path around, and as it compacted, it became very difficult to walk on. So what we're doing is we're using a similar Florida lime rock to the pergola structure in those pavers and rough cutting it so it doesn't look super clean and cut. It's going to match the aesthetic and the vernacular of the park currently. The bocce court is going to be redone with a surface and with a substrate that allows the water to drain a little bit more easy. It's going to be a very fine gravel. It's going to actually resemble more of a pétanque court, which is a French word for just a ball court. It'll still function as a bocce court for those that play that. It's just not the traditional granite and shell aggregate that's there currently. And then obviously there's been some landscape changes over time. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's some emptier spaces around some of the planting beds because the ground cover that was there had died or there were plants that didn't survive. And so Jeremy is working on a planting plan that's consistent with the designer's intent to fill in those spaces, and the turf itself is going to be moved back to its original position because over time, as we kept edging the turf, it kept moving out further away from the base of those plants. So we're going to return it back to where it had originally been.
Okay?
Okay.
Question, quick comment. The, one of the complaints that the original group that did the park was that the normal landscapers were not confident to take care of the plants and trees that they had planted. The stuff that you're planning now replacing, will our normal landscape contractor be able to take care of that? We don't need a specialist, because evidently that was the problem, the first point, that needed more, should I say, specialized, more competent people that we had.
So the new plants that we're planting, we've chosen them because they're native and they're low maintenance. And they're something that our contractors are familiar with. So that'll be what we do.
Good, thank you.
Are we able to maintain there was an educational component of the park originally, and there were all like these wonderful little signs,
Right.
and there were some field trips of classes that went.
Mhm.
How can we continue that going forward? And you talked so two questions, that, and then the second you talked about talking to the community. Have we had a town hall or a workshop or anything, or have you just talked to the people around? Because people came from far. I mean, there were people from the
Right.
east side of Crandon who used that park.
We did have a public meeting. I think it might have actually been during Nicole. It was downpouring. We all got very wet. But it was publicly advertised. I think mostly the residents from around there attended, maybe because proximity made it less of a rainy walk to that
Oh,
location.
you did it at the, I'm sorry,
We did
I
it,
missed
yes, we did it at the
somehow.
park. Yeah, we did at the park, and we walked through all the changes in the park itself so that we could speak to specifics, and we got a full history of its inception all the way to present day. So I think that there will be continual involvement. We can revisit doing a town hall. I know there will be a groundbreaking to celebrate the revamp, but that's something we can look into too.
And through the chair, just a question. Generally, there should be 2 meetings for that kind of project, yeah, and I believe in this case, we only had 1. So
Yes,
there was a bit of a complaint there, but,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
I think, yeah, so we can definitely have another one. The project is currently under construction, so ideally, we would have had the second meeting prior to construction. I do know that Jeremy's been in constant communication with the more interested parties of this particular park, but there's other people that would be interested in speaking as well, and something we can look into.
Okay, Mr. Manager, that's enough for you, right?
That's all I have. The full CIP report is in your packet. If you have any questions, obviously, we're available to answer. If not, we're also available offline to answer those questions as well.
Okay, let's move on to mayor and council members.
Mayor and council members request mayor and manager to explore negotiations with Florida Power and Light for possible mechanisms that can allow future reimbursement to underground electrical lines. Vice Mayor Moss, your item.
You think it was long enough? You think that was long enough, or I'll make it more detailed next time? Yeah, so I know how this is going to go. So FPL's working on the what do we call it, the pricing, the
initial design.
Yeah, the binding agreement or the estimate that they're working on right now. And we're going to get to that, and then everybody's going to start talking about, I believe it's the Storm Recovery Act, and there's all these different things out there that, pays for this and pays for that. And I think in the end of the day, we want to get this thing done community-wide. We want to do it quickly. We want to do it efficiently. And I'm trying to jump in front of this a little bit ahead. And again, setting that example out there, maybe there's other ways to try to find out how we can make this work. And even with the last manager, I spoke to her about it, and now our current manager, I think, Steve and I spoke about it, and I think both have approached FPL on the same issue, is that, if the storm, is it called the Storm Recovery Act? Is that the proper name for that?
Well, it's the
Storm Recovery
It's
Fee.
the SUP program. Jake, you know what SUP program stands for? Yeah, it storms the first S, but.
Okay. So the public.
I'm stumped on an acronym, sorry.
All right. So it was a few years ago that the Utilities Commission set a possibility that FPL can, charge on the bills and go ahead and underground laterals, which is the majority of what we need to underground anyways. And obviously they probably have a certain type of system where they're going after the ones that need it the most, or ones where storms occurred in a certain time. I know Councilmember London's going to bring that up. I thought that the best thing to do is that if they're going to underground everything at some point in time, next 30 years, 50 years, whatever it is, and we want to do it now, to try to sit down with them, negotiate, look, we can front the money now, we'll get them underground, and wherever we are on the list, if it's 20 years from now, put us there and just pay it back then. So we're financing the project for them. We're putting things under the ground for them. They don't even have to deal with it. It helps their operations. And then when they were going to pay for it, they're just coming back to us then. I know that the previous manager didn't have success. Steve, I know you sat with them and spoke to them a bit, and it seems that there's not a mechanism out there yet for that to happen. But I thought we're in a perfect position now that our new mayor, who has very good connections with FPL, we have a great manager, for them both to get together, go to the table, because I had never been to that table. I don't know if any elected officials have been there. I know we've sent our staff, but I think it's good that one that has a lot of connections and relationships there to go with our manager and try again, see if there's a way that maybe we can develop a win-win situation for both sides. And then when this comes back around in 6 to 8 months, we're not arguing over how we're going to pay for it and why is Coral Gables doing this and why are they doing that and why we're not. Because in the end of the day, if we follow what some of these other places are going to do, it's going to take us 30, 40 years to bury this, because they're going to do one at a time. And if somebody says no, it becomes very complicated. And if we do it, it would be much easier and more efficient. So that's what I put on there, and just want to discuss that with you guys and see if we can give any directive.
Okay, Joe. Yes, adding on to what you're saying, I think there's a possibility that we might not have the best lobbyist for this particular thing. The reason I'm saying that, I understand Coral Gables has now moved up on the list to get the FP&L to pay for it. We definitely, Miami Beach ourselves, are certainly much more vulnerable than Coral Gables to this. And so my thought, Steve, would be find out who their lobbyist is in regards to FP&L, Public Utility Commission, and maybe we enter into a contract with them to see what we can do to move forward. I mean, you're the expert on this, Joe. But I mean, it doesn't seem that why all of a sudden they jumped up on the list, and the criteria that the FP&L is using would not put them up on the list. Criteria is based on about 60% or 70% on 2 hurricanes, besides other outages, and they weren't affected by those as we were.
Do we know what? Council member, let me explain what's going on in Coral Gables. I don't think it's a lobbyist. I think it's salesmanship.
Well, that's what a lobbyist is.
No, salesmanship by, we won't mention who it is, but since I live there. They are getting nothing different than we would get under the SUP program. What they are getting is beginning in 2032 until 2058, they will get their laterals undergrounded. The part that got people excited is they also said they would get 15% of their feeders undergrounded. That portion, although got out in the press release, was just part of the discussion originally. Anytime you can potentially underground a lateral, you might have to underground a feeder just by the way which the system works. The estimate was FPL said would likely do between 5 and 15% of your feeders. Nobody knows until that happens. So we can get the SUP program too if we want to. Ours numbers starts in 2037 and ends in 2058. So if we want to go the same route of Coral Gables,
what do you think?
That would be
I'll be 118. That's good.
So, I mean,
We
that's
want to
always
get it
a-
done sooner than that, right?
Yeah, that's the option. I think that's what the vice mayor is
Wife will
saying.
kill me.
Yeah, the vice mayor wants to turn it on its head and say, why can't we pay for that now and then pay it back
I'm all for it.
from the timeline? That's what I think you're offering, vice mayor, is, reverse that
I'm
program.
100%
Do it now.
in front. I agree with him completely.
But don't be snowed by what's going on in Coral Gables.
Okay.
They're getting nothing different than the SUP program.
Thank you for the information.
Okay.
You good? Excuse me, Joe. The other thing is there anybody here on the council, since it's new council, for undergrounding? I mean, is everybody want undergrounding in Key Biscayne? I know Steve's taking either one way or other. He's not crazy about it. So the question is, our council for it 100%?
After much deliberation for a long time, yes.
Yeah, I don't think that there is opposition from the public for undergrounding. This is what I heard. People want us to bury our utility lines.
But I agree.
Right.
I'm just saying, does everybody else feel the same way? That's all.
It's the best way of hardening, in my opinion. I mean, otherwise you're going to have these very thick posts, and you're really not transferring. You keep the risk at every one of these posts, rather than this way, you move the risk to the substation. So, in my opinion, it's probably the best idea.
You want to tell us why we shouldn't do it?
Well, I think you misquoted me there, council member. I never said I wasn't crazy about it. I said there's always two options. One is the burial, and the other one is the hardening. Hardening is free, and the FPL would come in and do it right now. But the drawback is, as the council member mentioned, that we would have the hardened poles throughout. I think all I said is there's two options. There are drawbacks to undergrounding. We are on a barrier island with a very high water table, and it's rising. Technology, as it stands right now, can protect the water, as going into the system. We will face, and I think it's important for us to know, transformers at a certain staggered throughout our neighborhoods. I think people need to know that. Transformers will be up at least on a 2-foot concrete block. And then also the transformer itself. And over time, the good news is transformers get smaller as technology gets better. But we need to know what we are doing, right? And so yes, we will not have the poles, but a select number of our residents, not just a few, but many of our residents will have transformers in their front yard. So again, it's not that I'm not crazy about it. We just need to make sure we know the trade-offs.
Well, maybe I misquoted you. I meant to say that you said you'd go either way. Basically, if you said at the will of the council, that's fine with you, make sure it gets done. Is that?
Of course, yeah, no, of course, definitely.
But I mean, basically, it wasn't something you're really into. And I'm glad you told us now, the things you have told us, why you don't share the great enthusiasm, maybe.
Well, I'm enthusiastic. We'll do it. It's just I want to make sure I want to make sure people know what they're buying, right? And I think it's important that everybody wants to move ahead and get this done. And in the perfect world, it sounds great. I'll never see wires again. But those people who get the transformers in their front yard may have preferred to have the wire going through their backyard and not really seeing it because up in the trees, instead of that big transformer in the front yard.
Right, but the bottom line here is the strengthening and the hardening of the system, okay? So, the aesthetic part is a different component. If you are able to bury them and strengthen our system, which is what I'm hearing out there with the public talking all the time, they want this system strengthened. In fact, I see the wind's blowing out there. There's probably a very upset group of people out there because of that. That wind's blowing pretty hard out there. It needs to be done. And if there are other reasons not to do it, we need to know. But I think there is a clear consensus on this board and also within the public that it is an important strengthening and hardening project to do to strengthen the infrastructure that we have and make us more resilient. And it's a lot less about the aesthetics at this point in time.
No, I agree, and that's what we're moving forward with right now as the plan. Again, I just want to make sure that people know what we're buying. It's important to know.
Thank
Yes.
you, Mayor. Just want to make sure that people also understand the safety. So I've already witnessed my neighbor, the top line fall down on a tree, catch fire on the two neighbors. It took 2 hours for the fire trucks to get the electricity turned off by the time most of the trees burned down in the back. But in Hurricane Ian,
What tree?
This is Mazda.
Okay,
Yeah,
because
Mazda
I
Mountain
heard
Drive.
on Greenwood the
West
same
Mazda.
thing happened.
Yeah. So yeah, I've heard this from many people. So that happened 2 years ago. And then in Hurricane Ian, which was a breeze outside, if I woke up with the line in my backyard laying right where my kids play and touching our backyard, and FPL came out there, I called the fire trucks. They came out there, they reconnected it, turned it on, and 2 minutes later, it's laid down on the ground again. It burst and came down. The guy was putting it back up, and I was out there going, this makes me nervous that this can fall so easily. Yeah. How do you guarantee that's going to be fixed? He goes, underground it. That was his response, and that was it. So it's a safety issue. We've had issues at 530 and numerous issues around that. These lines do fall, and if they fall in the wrong place, it can be pretty traumatic.
While we're on the subject, Chad, your different municipalities that you all represent, anybody else moving forward with anything like this?
Some of them are in the pilot program, like in Pinecrest. So the FPNL has been doing it. I guess there was some selection criteria why FPNL chose Pinecrest. The other communities are mostly newer communities where they are undergrounded already. So that's what you usually see. So, but what I have seen in Pinecrest and what Steve is saying is correct. There were a lot of battles over the transformer. Is that what they're called? The on the ground, and people didn't like them in their front yard. And then Pinecrest put wrappings around them to make them look like a bush, which doesn't really look like a bush. And you're going to have those issues, but yeah. So I don't know if that's an option to look into. Why Pinecrest got in that pilot program and not the village, but. That's the only one I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's keep going.
If I could, one extra thing, Mr. Mayor, and I think the Vice Mayor mentioned Hurricane Ian. We actually had 27,000 customers, 2,700 customers who lost service during Hurricane Ian. Yeah. And it was not a very big hurricane. I think maybe we hit 40, maybe 45 miles an hour, and those were just gusts, not sustained. And again, the feedback that we got from FPL is it wasn't quite the long-term solution about undergrounding. It's about you guys got to cut your trees. So we're going to start a campaign. It's called the Right Tree, Right Place. It's FPL's making sure that you're putting the right trees underneath these lines because a lot of them grow up and obviously interfere with it. And once you arc a line or drop something on a line, it's not a good thing. And in some cases, we're going to have to, it is the responsibility of the homeowner to trim the trees away from the wires. And if they don't do it, FPL will come in and do it for you. And that just happened to me like 5 weeks ago, and it looks like not too good in my backyard.
So I have a question about that, Steve. In the absence of a resident understanding that safety issue, who's out there identifying whether or not these trees need to be cut and informing the residents that they need to be?
Yeah, well, we're gonna have FPL come through, and they're gonna come through in January with us and do a tour of the village and provide us information about which ones they think are interfering with the lines. Right. And so we'll obviously share that with our village.
All right, let's keep going. We got a number of things to finish.
Discussion on upcoming resiliency initiatives. Councilmember Vasquez.
Thank you. As everybody knows, I had a pretty steady platform, and during my campaign, I ran strictly on a lot of issues related to flood, homie Noah, my friend there, and more so infrastructure compliance. And what I was hoping to do today is just have a discussion which really follows up with a pledge that I made to the community during concerns about a certain amendment and certain issues associated with that amendment. No need to belabor on that issue. But I stated publicly that I had concerns about unintended consequences because the optics were, in my opinion, as this amendment was being looked, and I'm talking about amendment number 4, there were, my professional concerns were concerns related to compliance, concerns related to ensuring primarily compliance, getting our system up to an adequate level of service, and beyond that, focusing strongly on resiliency. And here's where I find myself kind of in a conflicting situation, because I have a problem with, I see resiliency as a life safety issue. And anything that we have that is related to that, to the subsequent needs that are required for any type of resiliency project, I find very difficult and almost impossible to really get ahead with a resiliency project and be compliant with FEMA as well as be compliant with the county. That I see resiliency as kind of warranting its own governance, for lack of a better word. And I really don't know, Mr. Manager, really how to go about and approach that. I would think that we could take a look at that. But one of my pledges was to really look at potentially a referendum to establish a level of, to dislodge the resiliency component from the current issues that we got. Because in my opinion, it has nothing to do with development and more to do with being compliant with our infrastructure and being compliant with FEMA. As I said before, my main concerns are not, obviously I'm very concerned about a big hurricane coming over, but I know where the relief money is going to come in. But these ongoing impacts that affect us on a more repeated, more frequent level, what are we going to do? Every time we have a project, we're going to have to go on referendum for that? This is the problem that I have. This is the issue that I have, and I've carried this issue all the way to this chair, and I wanted to have a discussion, Mr. Mayor, with you all, and just really understand how to best approach it. Do we go about, we need to look at resiliency differently. That's the way I see it. And I'm really kind of here, kind of reaching out to council and seeing how you see the best way would be to go about that. Clearly going on a referendum for each individual drainage project that we do, I think that would not be efficient, and we would have, I don't know how we would meet that.
Okay.
I mean, I wanted to say that today, leave that here. We don't have to resolve it today.
Okay.
Clearly, it's going to take time, but I would like to move in that direction if council supports me.
That sounds great. I assume that you've had some discussion with the attorney and the manager.
A discussion with the manager.
Okay. So, maybe you come back with something more concrete, or we figure out what the issues are going to be?
Yeah, I mean, the president of the premise is that resiliency is a life safety, and it's my life and limb properties, flood insurance, all those components, and we need to look at that in that way.
Okay. Mr. Attorney, is anything that, and again, this is not going to be a long conversation because he's presenting it as an issue. From what you've seen, are capital improvements in the area of flooding in conflict with existing situations and zoning that we have here on the island?
I think that when we did talk about it during the Charter Revision Commission, I think Jeremy even spoke that there were certain maybe regulations in the zoning code that he would come forward with that we've been hampered. I will tell you that during the past couple of zoning code rewrites, and when Vice Mayor Moss was in there, we actually left off some of the FAR because we can't increase FAR without a referendum to try to do incentives maybe to provide more resiliency. So there are certain things that are hampered. It's tough to talk about it so hypothetically.
Right.
It's better if it's a little more focused.
Yeah, I mean, we have to wait for a master plan to come up. We have to understand where the solutions are. But to focus on whether aesthetics or here, not in my backyard type of thing, those are the things that I think we need to work a little more. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be an easy discussion, but to continue to adhere it to a code that has to go by referendum, I think that would potentially be a cause of delay, becoming compliant and
Certainly
meeting
not
FEMA
potentially.
requirements. I'm sorry?
Not potentially.
Not potential, I'm being, yeah. So,
Offhand, the failure of Amendment 4, I think, does not conflate with the necessity of government in resiliency response by referendum. But there's no question but that there are certain amendments that have been proposed over multiple ZORCs that have been tabled because they require a referendum. And some of those bear on, potentially, the types of decisions that we could foreseeably find ourselves having to make.
Mayor, if I can add something.
Yes.
I mean, I think what you're kind of saying is very hypothetical, what you're saying right now. I think it might be a little bit of making certain definitions certain ways or uses if we needed to put a pump in a park or something like that is what I'm thinking, but maybe come back with some scenarios that we can kind of grasp on what would be the the necessary action to take.
yeah, the spirit of this is more to set up the tone to say, we need to look at resiliency as a life safety issue and something that needs to go in its own pace. And I see the other process as not matching.
So the other process being that some things would have to go through referendum, right?
If each individual solution has to go through referendum, I don't know how we would get to what we need to get.
I see what you're saying.
Okay.
That's something that we can work more, Mayor. We can certainly work more with staff if I get your support on it.
Yes. Absolutely. Come back with something after it's been studied. Okay, next.
Next item is equitable field usage. Councilmember Sardinius.
So the next three actually are items that had come up before in front of council, one of them being equitable field usage. It even came up today as far as analysis being done. I think what was discussed previously was the possibility of creating a workshop. So I wanted today to try to define what that workshop might look like and what's the scope of that workshop and what are the KPIs we're trying to get out of that. I know there's some middle term and long term solutions, or at least a committee being put together to find out, no holds barred, what other fields we could potentially use in the future. I think those are more middle to long term. But I think there's a need today for us to find a creative way to resolve this. That then ties into, and I'm going to go through these because they kind of segue into each other. When we talk about our sports vendors, as part of that RFP process, I think that part of that scope of that RFP should include coming up with some creative ideas on how these sports could all work together to use the limited spaces that we have today. So from a standpoint of the workshop that was discussed before, I wanted to ask the council here, because it came up in front of the previous council and the manager, what is the scope of that workshop? Can we define what that scope is, and can we define a date for that workshop to happen so that we can get through this? Because I think this could be something that we can do short term and kind of work with that. I'm glad Marcelo brought it up today. I believe also Augusto brought it up as well today, because it's something that's affecting the island. And we saw some very passionate residents here a couple of meetings ago talking about it. So I wanted to open that up too.
Mayor.
Hold on. Mr. Manager, can you bring Todd up and can Todd just tell us what the existing structures are that exist out there, and how do we get to Mr. Sardinius's request?
I mean, basically, the status is that we've had a 30% increase in our athletic participation over the last couple of years, and no new fields. So it's created an issue where everybody's bumping up against everybody. We're at pretty much 100% capacity. We've tried to, modify it a little bit to accommodate different programs, but really, to give to one is to take from another at this point. There's no, the most recent thing we did was light the K-8, and that was in an attempt. There's two real ways, if you're not getting new field space, to maximize it. And this council and previous councils have done that. They've changed surfaces and they've added field lighting and court lighting, which gives us extended hours, so you get extended use. But if you look now, we've lit everything. We've changed the surfaces at the most high-use areas, where we're investing money to improve the K-8 this summer. That's in the CIP that you discussed earlier today. So we discussed the new fact-finding committee. You might have heard me say this before, but we always looked at that space where now there is a field at Mast Academy. We looked at it for 15 years. 1 year it became a reality. So it's worth rehashing these. I'm happy to look at the allocation. I think we can do a workshop. I would like to see the different groups harmonized more and less of an us and they perspective and a we perspective. It has bothered us when we've heard people say the ex-athlete kids, and we've been discussing this, they're Key Biscayne kids.
Yeah.
They may play this sport or that sport, but let's refer to them not by the sport they play, but how we can help them. So I'm with you 100%, and we'll put together a timeline for a workshop looking into this.
Okay, and just, I want to also make sure that we're promoting this out to the residents to make sure we're getting their feedback as far as who are the right people to be asking. I think there's a lot of great, I think there's, well, we're obviously great residents out there that have great ideas. This will probably.
I would like to, I'm sorry, but I failed to mention one of the first things is you do have an advisory board.
Yeah.
The Athletics Advisory Board.
Can you go over that? I've got two committees, and we'll be talking about them pretty soon. Parks and Open Spaces Board, and then we have the Village Athletics Advisory Board. Can you enlighten us as to how these two work?
Sure. The Athletics Advisory Board started as the Youth Athletics Advisory Board in 2008 when we were transitioning from the Key Biscayne Athletic Club to the village-run athletic programs or village-managed athletic programs. They're an exceptional board, great board members, and their role is to advise staff and council on the very issues that you were just discussing. They've been extremely effective. They also hear complaints from the residents. I think you all got an email about an issue. One-on-one, I asked that person to come to the December 6th Youth Athletics, and they'll attend. So they work on your behalf. They report to you frequently. They're a tremendous resource, and they should be involved in anything we do going forward when it's
okay. And the other one does the Parks and Open Spaces.
Yeah, so the Parks and Open Spaces Board was previously named the Land Acquisition Committee, with the goal of evaluating potential land that could be purchased by the village for any purpose. So the title was changed to Parks and Open Spaces Board, but the function and direction from council still remains the same.
So this is internal, not an external, or could they serve also to try to find external?
They're not limited to within
Okay.
our municipal
So maybe
boundaries.
we can also help redirect some of their efforts.
Yeah, they've been reevaluating the entry block was their last charge to one of their members to look at, but we'll be meeting again in the new year, and they can come before you and.
Okay.
Both of these are independent from the new committee that was just put together for fact-finding for
Yes.
open spaces or.
Yeah, that's just a manager's committee, so it's not a sunshine committee, and it's just 3 individuals who we asked, we identified, what was it, about 12 to 15 potential spots. We said, don't limit yourself to these, whether it's on the island, off the island, in the village. Go out, evaluate, take measurements, what type of quality it is. Basically find all the facts that we need to know about those fields. And then what I hope to do is be able to come back to the council and say, we believe these 3 are ready now. There's something we can do and make it happen now. We believe these 3 are something that we need to keep our eyes on, for like the example that Todd just mentioned about MAST. that when conditions change, we need to be able to hop on it right there. Right. So that's the goal, and obviously three's not the goal, but you know, it's whatever makes sense, the numbers that come out, so we can actually, because you look at everything that you just talked about, the underlying issue is a lack of field space.
Yeah.
You know, that's really the problem. You know, everything else is a symptom of the problem. We got to deal with it. We got to deal with it now. But if we can find more field space, we begin to open this up and get more kids playing in bigger space. All the things I think we want to do.
That 30% increase translates into how many acres? Do you have some idea about that?
No, I don't have I'd have to break that down, but how many acres would be required due to that increase?
To serve that increase in population that you're talking about?
Increase in participation, yeah.
In participation, okay.
Yeah, and like when we did the numbers, we were happy to see that we also had a 60% increase in girls' registration, which is a goal for us and a goal for anybody we work with that's running programs in the village.
Okay, so your idea is we are providing direction to the manager to set up a workshop?
Yeah, to define a scope of a workshop, and there would be people who would be in that workshop to try to identify short-term, because I do believe you're working on middle and long-term, and we had this discussion as well, and I think that's great, including of reclassifying some of the open spaces we currently have to allow for some of this programming. But I think it's important and something we need to look at. So, yeah,
So you're looking at some clear, an intent, members, and a date?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or potentially dates, too. It may not be just, it may not be just a single date. It may be a period of time.
Absolutely.
This is not a
So
simple.
when you define that framework and that scope, I'd love to see what that is, what that looks like.
We'll bring it back to the council and we'll.
I think I just would like to make sure that whenever the workshop happens, that we do it after the VAB has their study that we heard about, so that we have real numbers to have a really good understanding of what's happening. Because this issue has become so heated among each different group or sport looking for field space. I don't want to just have like an open gym for the Rage in the Cage fighting for field space. We want to have real data to look at to understand what's happening.
Makes sense.
Yes.
I think I requested this earlier too, but can you send us the current field usage? I think you have a table to all the council members, so in the meantime, we all can look over it and kind of understand what's going on. That'd be great.
Yeah, and then this kind of segues into, I mentioned RFPs and making vendors, you know, if vendors currently want to really create value add for the residents of Key Biscayne and be competitive and continue to strive to be the best in what they do and what they the services they render the residents of Key Biscayne. I know at one point there was a conversation of some of the sports whose contracts are coming up. I would like to see a review of those contracts when they're coming up and making sure that we're putting them back out to bid. I think putting them back out to bid is going to create good competition. I think it's healthy. I think those people that currently have the contracts, if they can continue to add value, then it's not an issue. But it does give other people an opportunity to potentially add some value. And part of that value could be increasing the scope of the RFPs to include maybe coming up with some solutions on how to, you mentioned the word harmonious, right? To become more harmonious with their partnered vendors.
So what are we talking about?
Just
talking about one contract, two contracts?
Reviewing the so I specifically, there was a conversation a couple of meetings ago about a soccer contract. I don't know if there's
Not currently. Well, in the last 3 years, we've done soccer, field hockey, and basketball.
Okay. And none of those are coming up now.
The field hockey was just done.
Okay.
And basketball was just done. Field hockey, we only had one, which was the current. Basketball, we had 0.
Okay.
So we had to go find somebody to manage. So it depends on the activity. Rugby's almost 100% volunteer, so that's not something that we would put out. But the other ones we would, and we'll continue to do so.
Okay.
Ed?
Yeah, the previous council, in order to purchase better or select better services, we had basically said we want everything rebid all the time, so we're not just constantly renewing things without seeing what else was available in the marketplace. We might have the best thing right now, but the idea is that every service that we have, whether it's cleaning, whether it's soccer, whether it's anything, should be rebid on a regular basis.
100%.
And unless the council now wants
I
to
agree.
change that,
100%.
that was our thing going
It's our
forward.
policy.
That was our policy. So it's easy not to do this, and we have a great habit of not saying you, I'm just saying in general. We're still using the same cleaning contractor. We haven't rebid that in maybe 30 years. Not saying they're doing a bad job, but we don't know if we're getting a good deal. We don't know anything with these things. So now we are rebidding it, and you got a schedule, Steve, right, to rebid all the stuff.
We do.
So I think we are going to keep doing that.
And we've been doing it over the last year and a half, because I completely agree with you. We need competition. We need better talent.
So let me be clear. I thought that the soccer contract is up for renewal.
It was a 3-year with 2 1-years.
Uh-huh.
It's been 3. Okay. But in our analysis, the early years were COVID years. Usually 3 years is a good opportunity for an analysis of your existing program, but they were hampered by what they could and couldn't do. So our intention is to offer them the 1-year extension and then rebid after that. Their contract was 3 years with 2 1-year renewals in the contract that we negotiated. So we're at the point where we're and
But that renewal has not come before council.
Right.
it's in the agreement. It's the agreement that was passed by the previous council authorizes the village to make that renewal.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
But let me get one quick.
Specific.
Let me get one quick point. Well, first, so the contract that was approved by council was for 3 years with 2 1-year renewals.
Correct.
That are available to the village. When the contract was executed, shortly thereafter, we were in a period of COVID, so the program was completely different. So we want to give them the 1-year renewal and then rebid the project next time, the program next year. And what I also want to advise you is it's already December. This would have to be rebid earlier. Tryouts for any program happen in May. You would be, if you said in December, hey, let's do it now, you'd be in a very difficult position to get somebody in place. I think it would be challenging.
So 2 questions I have for you, Todd. So
Yeah.
when is the end of this current term?
We would.
And then secondly, how long would you recommend it takes so that we time it properly?
I would.
So when is the first one?
So I would have their contract end. I'll have to look at how we did it last time. I don't have the exact dates, but we had it pretty well sequenced. So obviously what we want to do is we don't want to.
No, but I'm asking for just the actual contract itself. When
Is it January 1st? Is it?
3-year period?
I don't have the date off the top of my head. Exactly.
Okay. But I think we need to know that because that does that align with the timing that I think we need to have, and I think that's where the conversation I think we need to
Yeah,
start
and to
talking.
Ed's point, I just want this to be standard across the board for everybody. I understand your argument or your conversation about COVID. I don't know. I'm not quite sure how that's really relevant because anything could happen. We could have other situations that now we're extending people's contracts, but not other vendors. So I just want to be clear. Let's just be standard. Let's find out what those end dates are. Let's look at them all and then put them out to bid if they're up.
Yeah, I mean, the contract's within its lifespan.
Yeah.
It hasn't expired.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. London.
My question, Todd, is that you're recommending this 1-year extension to us as a council, or you arbitrarily made that decision?
This is not a decision that would come before council.
It would not come before.
Let me take that back. That is something that Todd and I have spoken about. We believe after, again, he mentioned before that because of COVID, we don't believe they've been given an opportunity to do a full term. So our recommendation would be, I have the authority to do it, but if this council wants to, I don't know whether it's remove that authority, it's already in contract, but if you want to put it back in front of council, we'd be happy to have that. But our current recommendation is to extend it one more year.
I understand, but our policy is to rebid everything.
Yes,
Which
but
I thought it was.
but-
Maybe
but-
it's not.
And it was bid. It was
But it's bid, and we
No,
have
but you're
every.
saying this should be an exception to
No,
that policy.
no, a contract, a 311 is a
No,
standard contract mechanism.
The 311 is our option for the next 1 years, correct?
Yes, right, yeah.
So it's a 3-year contract. Then we have the option to go forward.
Right.
So it's not bound. They don't have the option. We do.
No, exactly, right, yes.
So the question then is, are we going to rebid it in the policy, or are you going to make an exception to the policy? That's all. I think that's what it comes down to.
But
We're
I
going to
don't,
make the exception because of COVID.
but I don't think the policy, I mean, a contract is a contract. If a contract says you can have a contract for 5 years, that's the contract.
If
I
the
mean,
contract's for 3 years.
well, it's 3 years with 2
But that
extensions.
we can go ahead, they go forward, but that's contrary to our policy of rebidding things. Your
That's the first time
one-year
I've heard that
extensions.
policy, but that's.
Okay, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's have this information come back to us at the next council meeting to see, exactly where we are, whether we're, past go already or not, or.
Let us come back with
And
recommendations.
also, I'd like the attorney to weigh in when it comes back as to who has the authority to do what. So, yes,
Yeah, I just want to add that, I remember this clearly, but I can see the confusion between the policy. But I think that to be clear, we should take an action, a vote of what we want that policy to be. And if the policy is that even if there is a renewal, we want it to go out to bid, because the reason why this came up is because we spent budgeting money to bring in a procurement officer. And we want to use that procurement officer in our advantage. Whether there's, and I don't want to pinpoint just a soccer program, because this should be village-wide, all the way across. And there's reasons why that we may want to go ahead and extend and pool those options, but I think that should come back and say, look, we can go out to bid, but council, we recommend we do this, because if we go out to bid, we may not get an advantage. So we should option this. But I think that your idea of COVID is very weak in this instance, because we're not looking at the performance. I think they probably performed well. That's not the issue. The issue is looking at, are we getting what we need to be getting in that program? Or, is the contract written correctly? Are there issues in there that we know from our side? Because in the budget that we just had, there were brought up from our financial officer, our chief financial officer, that there may be other revenue ways to capitalize that we're not capitalizing in, and we need to look at that. So that has nothing to do with performance or COVID or something like that. They're just looking at what we want to look at in our contract. And we have the option now if we want to look at that specifically. But overall, I think that we need to make a vote. So it's very clear and rock solid to our administration of what the policy, because I think what was before was a discussion and kind of a consensus.
but Councilmember, I just asked 5 minutes ago if it was our policy. So if it's our policy, it's our policy, right? Is there something that we need to put in writing, or is it maybe it needs a resolution? Mr. Freed, Chad, do we have a resolution that says that, or?
I don't know if they've ever been codified in a resolution. I mean, it has been discussed, and the manager, as he said, has been.
He's clear about it, yeah.
He's been bidding out those contracts. And we're happy to bring back with the agreements in front of you and talking about that the agreements are, if it's a 311, it's a 311, right? It's a 3-year contract with.
Right. We're getting far afield. We have a policy issue and we have a specific issue about this vendor contract.
Right. So the answer is that you as the council, every new council can create new policy. So it's your choice. So if you guys want.
No. My question is, I heard that we have a policy before.
I don't believe it's ever been by resolution. I think that it has been discussed, and I think the manager has fulfilled the direction of council, as Councilmember London has said. But it's,
Okay.
Yes.
Do we have the direction to the attorney to codify such a resolution?
We had consensus on this point.
Okay, and but let's go one step further. Okay, so there's a consensus on this board that we want you to draft that resolution for possibly our next meeting if.
Okay.
Okay, now, the second point is, Mr. Manager, you're going to come back in 2 weeks on the 13th, and so that we can see the timelines necessary about this particular contract that Mr. Sardina has brought up to check.
Soccer contract.
Okay?
The soccer contract.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Steve,
Additional
one
comment?
last thing on this. You just mentioned something in your thing that maybe it's too late to go ahead and bid this thing before the contract comes out. How long does it take to prepare an RFP if we do want to bid this out?
I'm not preparing it's the whole process and then the selection process and onboarding process. We'll take a look at the dates and
Well, I'm
report back
saying,
again.
but the RFP is the first
But,
thing, right?
My point is, the council approved the RFP process, approved the contract, but we'll bring it back and we'll give you the dates and we'll give you our recommendation. At the end of the day, we're going to do whatever you want us to do.
My question, Todd, assume the council says, listen, we want to go forward. We're going to bid every contract in the village out. This happens to be one of the contracts. And you made a statement that maybe it's too late to bid it earlier because we have to have it in place by some certain date. So my question to you is very simple. How long will it take to put together an RFP to the people who might be interested in bidding this to get that RFP out? That's all.
Let us come back to you on December 13th with that.
Well, we're wasting some more time by going December 13th. I mean, my question is a simple question. How long does it take?
Well,
We don't need till December 13th to figure that out.
Well, I mean, if we want to send out the exact same RFP, that's pretty easy. But I think what I'm hearing is we want to evaluate that RFP. We want to make some changes, whether it be from the procedures in which the contractor does the work, also whether there's some sort of compensation for the use of our fields. So there's work to be done. But we'll let us go back. Let us take a look at the RFP. Again, I mean, if we focus just on the RFP and nothing else, we can get it done pretty quickly.
Real dumb suggestion, real dumb. But, you can laugh at me. Why don't we have pretty much say to the providers, what do you propose for us, for the Village of Key Biscayne? And let them be creative and come back to us. This is what we require, this is what we can do, and get some input from as many people as we can. We might learn something. We're probably going to go back. We're very happy with the existing provider. We might go right back to him. But he might come back now and say, hey, I can also add this or do that or whatever else. So my thing, instead of going home, make it a difficult or very complicated RFP, make it pretty much an open RFP. Hey, you want to be our provider? What can you do? What are you going to provide? And go forward.
We can that's called an RFQ. And we could try the RFQ route.
Sorry for
but
you and your letters.
It's not my letters. I'm not a procurement officer. That's what they call it. But yeah, it's a request for qualifications.
Okay, I think we beat this one to death.
We'll come back with a recommendation what we think the best contracting mechanism is.
Yes. All right, next.
Item is Youth Council Initiative update.
First of all, I wanted to say, great job on the youth programs. Todd, thanks for presenting that earlier. I think that's great. I know Mayor mentioned a certain age group, the teens here on the island. It was a discussion item that came up in a couple of previous meetings as well. I know there was thrown around the idea of a youth council of sorts. I know you and I had a conversation about this, Steve, as well. I saw some interesting information about it today. I guess today I wanted to kind of define what more can we be doing, or what is that framework? Has it been defined of what that youth council looks like? And can you give us a little bit of an update of what that looks like and how we're promoting it out there? Even from a standpoint of marketing it to students as possibly teaming up with schools, local schools, Miami-Dade County Public Schools, to see if they get some kind of credit, whether it's volunteer credit, to be part of this. Because in the beginning, fortunately or unfortunately, we have to market something. It has to be something cool for these kids to even want to do outside of all the work we do to prepare it. And so sometimes I think we don't go far enough to really make it something that they'd be interested in being a part of.
Well, exciting news.
Yeah, great.
When good minds start thinking alike. I actually got some good information from Vice Mayor Moss today. We have 2 potential volunteers, and it's the beginning of some ideas. So Fred, if you want to. kind of outline that?
Sure, yeah. So just to give you guys some history, we brought up the idea of having the youth council, and we started it back, well, there was one that outdates me far back. I think, Frank, you know more about that one, but we resurrected it back in 2019, and that went into 2020, right into COVID, and we basically had to stop it for 2 years. And we've been trying to bring it back. And luckily, we have some great volunteers that have been stepping up and helping out. And we already have, and I think I distributed it to everybody today, we already have a flyer ready to go. We would love to send it out. And the idea, I probably should have printed it. I wasn't prepared for it, but we did have some ideas that we bounced around. We've been working on this for maybe the last 4 months. But when we did it before, we kind of opened it up from any age from 6th grade and up. And we had 20 kids in it. It was a little bit large, a little bit difficult to control. The age group was a bit difficult to work with as well. So this time around, we decided that maybe it would be best to limit it to an older youth group, maybe sophomore to senior or somewhere in that age group, and limit it to a certain amount of students that could be on there or youth that can be on there. Maybe 12 or 10 or whatever it is. So we're kind of defining those right now. We're kind of playing tug of war of like, should it be 12, 10, and why, and stuff like that. So, but we want it to be manageable. We want it to be where the kids are really committed. We also noticed last time that a lot of the children that came, since it was such a big group, the next time half of them were missing. You don't really know which ones are. So the commitment was at different levels. We want that whoever's on this, that they're really committed. If they're not, we want to then say, thank you very much, but this is not for you. We're going to find somebody else to step in for you, because we want full meetings and good discussions going on. One of the things that we also learned previously is that we did a lot of lecturing, a lot of teaching, and, with kids, it sometimes gets a little boring if you do too much of that. We kind of wanted them to dive in right away in looking at teen programming, and it's kind of what Todd was bringing up as well, that, they can jump in and start figuring out how they can engage their age group in doing more on the key and start making those kind of ideas that they can bring forward to council. I've talked to Steve also about this as well, and we looked at the structure. Making them a council sunshine group was something that we avoided last time. It just didn't make sense to have children subject to the laws of sunshine because it could become a disaster. We did it under, I think at one point we did it at that time we did under the Community Foundation when they were working with us. But Steve said that, it would be great just to have this as a program within the Parks and Recs and underneath their supervision with volunteers, that they can work under there and come and stand up here and make their case of what they think that's needed. And I think that should be the best path. We'll still bring in the educational components and have, different departments come and take them into the departments and what they do, participate and even maybe talk to a lot of us and come to meetings. So I think that, we'll continue to have that in there, but we want them to start off doing the fun stuff right away, keep them engaged. And I think we'll have a much greater success.
Question, you had mentioned a couple of comments previously about how to communicate it out there, how to market it to the kids. I think you had some great ideas when you were talking to Todd. I think that's really going to make the difference, make this or break this. I think the initiative is amazing. And kind of deferring to you, Allison, as well, with the idea of making this marketable towards teens and making it valuable for them, is there a possibility to create some kind of volunteer point system where they can get some kind of credits with Miami-Dade County Public Schools?
Well, high school students kind of across the board, public schools, private schools, are usually required to have a minimum number of community service hours. So I think that if we deem this community service, which it seems like it is to me, I think that they should be able to earn community service hours.
Right.
Yeah. And just to add something to that, this is great discussion items for this group of kids to have. I mean, they can initiate a lot of this stuff. Like, why are we not getting hours? And they go out and start working on that for
Yeah.
themselves. So, I don't want to do everything
Excellent.
for
We will
them.
pass that to them.
Push it to them and let
exactly.
them do the work, and they have stuff to do, and learn how to get it done. So.
Match up these volunteers with our support and logistics, I think we can kick off a good plan.
I think so.
Would there then be a council member liaison that would work with
Absolutely.
this group? We could do that.
We can do that.
That would help report back to us and kind of just continue to bring ideas. But I love the idea of teens creating programming for teens. I think the one thing we've been unable to do as a village is really find out what teens like to do. And once we get our hands on it, they don't want to do it anymore. Right?
Yeah.
Great. Excellent.
Just an observation.
Yeah.
One of the earlier iteration of the Youth Council had some really brilliant manifestations, but one of the problems was having a group of adults who tried to help with creating structure,
Yeah.
but had difficulty doing so and not getting in the way. So the balance between participating and dominating can be difficult to strike.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Need a real facilitator, not a
Yeah.
teacher.
Well,
Okay, still got things to do.
I'll throw in my hat for that, by the way. I would love to do it. This would
We're
be
getting to that. Is
Yeah.
that next?
This would be
Yes,
amazing.
possibility of dividing up initiatives and/or committee liaison assignments between council members. Mayor Roscoe.
Yes, so I took the liberty to prepare this sheet. Don't get hung up on the number or the priority. It's just a numerical thing. But one of the things that occurs to me is that, if we all sign up for something, that would make this process a lot easier. And I would love to have, just like Mr. Sardinius just said, I mean, he just volunteered for something. And so this was just it's not a full or comprehensive sheet, but it's just an idea sheet to stimulate discussion as to, areas of expertise that you all have, that we should try to get that from you and push. For example, Ed, you had some insurance background at some point, right? Yeah. So there are things here that already happening. The number 5 here, traffic flow and safety, Crandon. We had an item on it today. But if you all feel like this is something you would like to do, take this home and think about it and see where you want to pencil your name in here, and we can work to evolve this in different ways. So, Mr. Vasquez, any input from you?
I was going to offer the flood mitigation Oscar, but that's,
We thought you might go for that. I don't know why. Yeah.
No, I'm good. There's a lot of good stuff here.
Okay.
I think it's a great idea. And, I mean, a question for my own edification. Would this be heading a committee, or would this be more in the sense of?
I think this is more in the sense, we don't want to create anything more, but
Done.
there's a baseline, and maybe you do need a committee. But until you come back to us and say, hey, you know what, I've been working this thing, I'm killing myself, and I'm going to need more help because X, Y, and Z, then we do create the committee.
Yep.
We try to not create the committees because of the sunshine inhibits conversation. But, maybe you recruit a couple of people, that will help you with this and research that. Kind of like, what the manager is doing about, looking at external sites and things like that. The same thing here. And then some of these are boards. So, for example, Art in Public Places Board, okay? I'm going to have to appoint people, so I would also want to hear your recommendations about people that should be on there and the new people that we need to circulate into different things. We talked about the Village Athletics Advisory Board. We talked about the Parks and Open Spaces Board. The Pension Board. Ed, you're not on the Pension Board?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just give my thing back.
All right.
Yeah, here's his form.
Are you still on the pension board?
I was
No,
going to
I
suggest
can-
maybe everyone on the council, just in order of priorities, 1, 2, 3, put the top 3 that you'd like maybe be
The
interested in.
pension board
We
is,
have a look at
the
that.
pension board's a separate board.
It's not nominated by us, right? It's,
There is, I believe, one village appointee, council appointee, I believe. I need to check. I know that the unions appoint one, 2.
We appoint
each,
2,
and then
they appoint, fire appoints 1,
and then they
police
appoint,
appoints 1,
and they
and
vote
then the
on
board
one.
together appoints a 5th.
Right, but it's not anyone from council that sits on those boards.
No, we're liaison.
Yes.
okay.
That's a question.
Yes.
So the process, 2 things. So we had a really, really great turnout when we advertised for the vision board. So if we're having boards, would you want to do a big advertisement? And what would be the requirements? Would you want people to submit resumes or something of why they're interested in actually joining the board where you could review it?
In my view, I think it would be incumbent on you guys to do that and say, hey, Joe, here's 5 people that are really perfect for the Sustainability Advisory Board, let's say, and work it that way.
Okay.
Joe?
Yes.
The only thing is that a number of people in the past have complained, and they said, hey, it's always the same people who are appointed to these advisory boards. We don't have a chance. And so, it's not fair.
Okay.
So that was the idea of advertising and making it public. Say, hey, if you're really interested, fine, submit a resume. So everybody had a chance.
okay. No,
Rather than
and
be somebody we know, we might know the people, but this was open to everybody.
Yeah.
By doing it, that was all.
No, okay, I didn't mean to say that we don't want to encourage people.
but I'm just saying
But I'm just saying, yeah, it'd be better if it's channeled
I
through.
understand, but basically, question I think you brought up, do we advertise it in the paper and say, listen, we have openings in certain such board, if you're interested, submit your resume.
Okay.
I understand that some boards also have term limits.
They all do now.
Okay, so maybe, but this is anecdotally, what I've heard in the past is that many times those term limits are exceeded because we don't find new people that are willing and able to join these boards, but also very anecdotally, right, so where I was going, right, so I've spoken to several people, and the majority of the time, the answer is, oh, I didn't even know that board existed, or how do I even get on it, or how do I even do this? And so, again, you brought it up with Todd, I brought it up with Youth Council. Again, what's the best way to communicate and to really promote this to make sure we get fresh blood in there and just rotate through this wonderful community of amazing residents that have great ideas? One part is us going out there and speaking to our residents, right? I think that's great. How else can we do that?
Well, I think I just want to tie up your suggestion of the recommendations coming from the liaisons, I think is a step that we missed that I think makes a tremendous amount of sense, that clearly the outreach needs to happen the way that it did when we saw people for like the vision board, that doing, using the village's resources for communication really helped, but to have the resumes then go to the liaison and the board, right? To say they know best what specialties they're missing or could use, makes a lot more sense than for it just to go to the mayor, not just, but to go to the mayor and you're just sort of in the dark, like this person looks qualified, but you don't necessarily know the needs of the board.
Okay.
So I think that was a great idea. I'm happy to I'd like to take it home. I don't want to, unlike
Absolutely.
Ed, I'm not ready to hand it in just yet. But,
And just real quick, I have this list, and maybe this provided to me by the clerk. But for example, Frank Kaplan's listed as Art and Public Places Board liaison. How do we go about, if Frank doesn't want to do it anymore and Brett wants to do it, how do we go about changing this around?
Historically, in at least a number of years, looking back, people would, for the charter boards, it's different. For the ad hoc boards, you would basically express an interest, and consensus would be drawn around your service to fulfill that interest. I can't think of a time there would have been a disagreement.
Okay. Always worked.
With the charter boards, the process is we all submit recommendations to the mayor.
Right.
There's a process.
And the charter boards are?
Pension, art.
Education?
I think what used to be called land acquisition.
Parks and open spaces. Village Athletics Advisory Board?
So the appointments would work through the mayor, but the liaison relationships would derive, basically from the same process of volunteerism.
Okay, so I've got you as the liaison for Art and Public Places. So at some point, you need to let us know you want to continue or not, or what.
Mr.
Then
Mayor.
I have Education Advisory Board.
Mr. Mayor, if I just may just say one quick thing, I'm sorry. I wanted to ask, it seems to me like there's a lot of stuff here that, and just looking at it, that could, for example, the flood mitigation, the Barry utility lines, Bear Cut Bridge, all that could fall under maybe just infrastructure? Maybe have something where we could put all those individual components in it, or something art and culture, or parks and recreation and sports. I mean, I'm just trying to create like maybe roll-ups.
Yeah,
and have individual folks and liaisons within the community that would be individually interested in all these components. So therefore, we probably reduce it just a tad and maybe just have one individual council member looking at maybe, arts and culture, infrastructure, financial, we got education. My thoughts.
I hear what you're saying, and I thought about it also, but here's the thing, for example.
Like safety,
Bear Cut Bridge could be very, very specific and very, time-consuming. And it is tied to Rickenbacker Causeway, but it really isn't also, our conceptual plan is one thing and the bridge is another thing.
Right.
There are some similarities, but there's also opportunities to focus more, in a more specialized way.
You're right. I mean, the Bear Cut Bridge has a safety component, right? Yeah. It also has an inference. So maybe we could fall within safety, but it could also fall, the infrastructure discussion could fall within infrastructure and then kind of have a, handshake between those, or connection or communication between those communities.
I hear what you're saying. You're thinking it's all, lump 3 or 4 into infrastructure, boom, that's it.
When it comes, when that specific element is about the infrastructure component of it, but maybe that specific element has a safety issue, which could go into a safety committee for discussion. I don't want to overcomplicate it. We can talk about it more, but it's just a thought, just rolling it up maybe. And
let's do that. I'll have the clerk put this item back on for next December 13th, and I'll hope to hear more feedback from you all.
So the first action would be where we would like to.
Yes, where would you like to liaison? What areas of these that I mentioned? And if you want to, change the name of it, that's fine.
Along with a possible list of people that we've spoken to in the community that might be interested.
Yeah, that's
the next step.
That's the next step, right?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, would it be helpful if we sent our list ahead of time, either to the clerk to compile?
To the clerk.
And then she can share it
and
before the meeting so that we all can see where there's more than one person interested in something and we're just prepared before the meeting?
And
So,
do you want me to distribute the current contact list?
no,
As
our
well?
list of priorities
As
of
well.
what we would like to join, we will send to you. And if it's okay for you to compile it into just one document with each of our names next to whatever we're interested and circulate it before, maybe if we could say we have it, our meeting's in 2 weeks, can we all have it within 1 week's time?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Ed's finished.
absolutely.
He can pass it down to the clerk now. I think he has it.
care of you, Ed.
Okay.
Yes, that's fine. I was just
That's a great
suggesting
idea.
to distribute
Sure.
the current list that we gave the mayor.
Okay, let's keep moving. We're not done.
One more discussion item, vision plan update, Vice Mayor Willis.
I want to give a quick update on the vision plan. We do have a public meeting that's coming up.
Excuse me, you are the liaison?
I am the liaison of the
Okay.
vision board. But we do have a public meeting that is proposed already. I think it's been sent out on the Village-wide Connect. And this is on December 6th at 6 p.m. in the community center in the Lighthouse Room, correct? And this is going to be a panel discussion where people can come and ask questions to better understand the vision plan. So as many people can come, please come. This will be, I believe, the last public meeting we're going to have before it comes in front of the council. The second part of this is that I would love just to let my fellow council members know that please read the plan and meet individually with our staff to ask the questions. It's a dense document. It's an important document. I don't think we want to we can sit in a room for 10 hours asking questions back and forth. So I think it's really good that you guys get those things, done beforehand. Not only just in the sake of time in the meeting, but it's also important for you guys for all of us to understand what we're adopting and what it is and why it's important. And so, it's going to take a little bit of homework, but I believe we're coming back. It's going to be in January, possible for final adoption. So I asked Jeremy to make sure that we have that final document ready for you guys as soon as possible, so you can take time over the next month and a half to read it and get all your meetings set up and ask those questions.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Moss.
The next item is village clerk, certification of general election results as presented in the agenda. Next item is election of vice mayor pursuant to section 2.02B of the village charter.
Mr. Attorney, can you go over what the procedure is here?
Sure. So pursuant to our charter, I believe it's our first meeting in November, we have to select a vice mayor. So it's within your purview to make a motion and a second and choose the vice mayor. That's our procedure.
Do we have nominations?
I do. I have a nomination.
Your nomination is?
My nomination is for Frank Kaplan as vice mayor.
Second.
I have a second. Do we have other nominations? Seeing no other nominations, we close the floor to nominations. All those in favor of Frank Kaplan as vice mayor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right.
Reprising my earlier role.
Yeah. Now, she still stays here, and the rookie stays here, so.
The next item is a proposed 2023 village council meeting schedule.
Yeah, I'm going to offer a couple of dates, but one of the things that this is a great opportunity to discuss is everybody happy with our meeting days and our meeting times? This would be a good opportunity to discuss that. I've heard some people say 6 is too early. We used to meet at 7. I guess we'll go to history first. Mr. Kaplan?
I think moving this meeting, first of all, Tuesdays are
pretty good.
They're fine.
Okay.
You schedule around requirements, and this is one. I think one of the more popular decisions was moving the meetings till 6 o'clock because we get done our business agenda at a time when people are still have a chance of being awake and participatory, and we get home earlier. I've not heard any over, how long have we been doing this? It's been 12 years, something like that?
Long time.
I've never heard a serious complaint about interruption with work responsibilities from any of the many colleagues with whom I've served. So I think that I would just offer the impression that 6 o'clock was popular and well received.
But I got to say, if you talk to soccer moms out there, is this at the same time that they're, putting together dinner and?
Happy to talk.
Would you?
Yeah, 6 is brutal for me. It definitely was tough. It's a tough one and definitely interferes with my primary job of trying to get out of the house. But I'll do whatever. I was elected to come to the meeting, and whatever time it starts, I'll be here. And once here, I'm in no, I guess I shouldn't say I'm in no rush to get home. But once I leave, I've left for the night, whether it's 11, 2, it doesn't matter to me. But I have heard from other people on the island with kids that public comments at the beginning of the meeting. Now, maybe we've fixed it by adding the other, but that it is hard at the earlier hour when you're running around with kids and sports and homework and dinner and that kind of thing.
Let's start at this end here. Mr. Vasquez, any?
Well, I was going to offer 6:30.
Oh, look at you. That's a nice idea.
I'm okay with, I'm okay with 6, but I'm okay with 6:30. I think 7 would be a tad later. Yeah, I'm if that's,
Brett?
And the other thing, I'm sorry, on the public comments, I would suggest, if that's the will of the council, is said, to look at maybe not in the beginning, but somewhere in the middle, where people can be here and offer. They've heard the meeting, they were soaked into the issues, and they want to issue some comments.
If I may add, the reason why the public comments were moved up to the front was a change in the Florida law a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's by state law.
And the reason being is that you can move it to the back, but then we would have to allow public comments on the consent items. And so the whole purpose of having it in the front is if someone has a comment on the consent items, they could say it before you guys vote on the consent items.
Well, and we have added a second one later in the meeting, so.
Okay.
For me, it's
on the time.
I can do any time. I was the reason why it moved to 6 because we were not getting things done, and it was overlapping, and our agendas were getting thicker and thicker because we couldn't get things done. I think this council is going to be much more efficient, so I'm fine with it at 7. I can tell you that 6 is fine either way with me. I tried to put it back to 7 during COVID because it was brutal for me from the standpoint of being home with kids and things like that. It became very difficult, but now that that's over, I can do either time. The public comments is a very simple solution. Now that we have 2 in there, we put the second one at a time certain, period. We stop whatever we're doing. It's at, you have one at 6 and one at 7:30, or if we do one at 7, or you have one at 8:30. So people know that the next one's coming and just be at the meeting at this time so that they're not trying to gauge where are they on the agenda so I can come and speak. We just have a time certain. That would make a solution for having something earlier and also having something at a more reasonable time. And, Allison, I think you could give us a little bit of a hint of when that second one would, best fit for most of the people at home. So again, I'm open for 6, 6:30, 7, doesn't really matter.
So 6 is a bit tough for me as well. Truth be told, I enjoy my time with my little ones, and they're very little at this time. So I like the whole 6:30 compromise, if not 7. As far as the public comments, I love the idea of scheduled public comments no matter where we are in our meeting. I think it does create a bit of urgency, and what we're always looking for is to engage our residents. And I think part of the reason they don't necessarily come to these meetings is because they go on, or they have traditionally gone on very, very long. And if they miss that public comment, then they don't get their chance to speak. And so it just gives them the opportunity to plan, like Brett said. So, yeah.
Okay. Ed?
One of the reasons for 6, Frank will remember this, when you were mayor, we scheduled 2 meetings every 2 weeks we had a meeting.
Yeah.
Because we could never finish. So the idea of starting earlier, we eliminated a meeting. And that's what happened, and it really worked out fine. Yes, 6 is more difficult than 7.
Yeah.
But 6 is a lot easier than 2 meetings. And
Sure.
that was the reason for that.
Okay.
And it worked out fine, because since that's happened, unless it's a special item or something else, we've been able to get along with 1 meeting instead of 2.
I think
Okay.
now though, we're gonna end in, you're gonna make sure we're out of here early every time.
I am, but,
Heard him say it.
but still, you want to try 6:30?
Do you want to try 2 meetings a month instead of 1?
That- I believe
No.
that was already a motion.
Well, what's better?
Did you make that as a motion, Councilmember Vasquez, or?
Yeah,
Mr.
Vasquez made it as a motion, it was seconded by.
So I guess he made it by
motion for
I'll make a motion for 6 o'clock.
Well, we already have
We
a
vote on
We
motion
have,
on
we
the floor.
have,
one on
excuse me. We have a motion on the floor, and the motion is to think about moving it to 6:30. Discussion on the motion.
I just vote counted, and I'll support it because it seems that I've been informed by my esteemed friend about problems that I am emancipated from experiencing. So I'll support it.
Look, let's not be diehard about these things. Let's try it. If it doesn't work, we'll go back to 6 o'clock. All right?
Do we want to make a recommendation of having a time certain for the second?
Okay.
That's a good idea.
So if the first one's pretty close to 6:30, the next one would have to be close to what? 7:30, 8?
8 o'clock. People finish dinner?
If I may,
2 hours in.
through the chair, we have time certain 8 o'clock manager's report. So either
Just do it
we
before the
could move
manager's
him
report.
to 8:30.
You can always move him.
No, why don't we just put public comments at 8 o'clock, and after public comments are over, it has to go right into the manager's report, no matter what. So it doesn't matter what time it is, it just always will be after that.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Or, because the reason for a time certain on the manager's report is Ed was-
We weren't getting to
We
it.
weren't getting to it.
Yeah. So we just stick
Okay.
it in there.
So this is,
Madam Clerk, you got it?
are you adding in the time certain, or
Yes,
the
we
public
are.
comments into the motion?
As a
Yes,
friendly,
yes,
as a
we
friendly
are.
amendment.
I'm glad that
As
you
a
caught
friendly
that
amendment?
quickly, yes.
So
Thank-
start 6:30.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, let me suggest just a couple of changes
The dates.
to dates. Yes. Okay, so everybody got it in front of them? We're looking at the 7th, January 17th, February 15th, so this is a good little change there.
That's a Wednesday.
Yeah, it's a Wednesday because, you wouldn't want to be meeting on Valentine's Day. Okay? Yeah, I saved you guys.
We want to
okay?
stay married, yeah.
Yes. March 14th. I would suggest on April, would you all have objection to moving it to the 4th? The end of that weekend is Easter, and then a lot of people go away the following week.
Good idea.
No problem. April 14th becomes 4.
Are we looking at
April
the?
11th becomes April 4th.
Are we looking at the school calendar? I just want to make sure none of this is.
Yeah,
falling on
I
breaks.
checked, and the public school is out in March 20th around that date, so it doesn't conflict.
Doesn't conflict, okay.
Okay, we have May 9th, June 6th. I'm wanting to see if we can move the June 27th workshop to the 29th. Any objection to that?
Thursday?
Yes. Hearing none, okay. July 18th. On August,
Mr. Mayor, there is, on the 29th, there is an FCCMA annual conference. I'm not sure if the council would like to attend that.
where at?
They haven't announced where it is yet.
Starting the 29th? Is that what you're saying?
It currently, right now, it's tentatively scheduled for the 28th to the 1st. 28th of June to the 1st of July.
Why don't we do the week before for the workshop?
That's something we need a lot of time to prepare for.
Yeah, that's a tough one for
Yeah.
them.
The day before? Do it on Monday?
26. Monday, 26.
Sheesh, all right, let's just leave it where it is for now, and as we get closer, we can.
And once they solidify the date, then we can, let's see when the date is, and then we can make the call as it gets closer.
Okay.
Are we June 29th or not?
Yeah.
Stay on the 27th
We're going to
for now.
stay for the 27th until we have more information. Okay, August, I would suggest moving it a week to the 29th.
I agree.
A lot of people
It's a
are
bad
just
day
getting
for me.
back and getting their kids in school, and it's just a messy time.
My daughter's birthday. I'm not gonna miss that one.
There you go.
And then,
That gives us very little time for the budget hearing. Something we want to consider.
Week.
If we,
That's a regular
This-
meeting, that's regular.
Right.
Oh, I see, you're busy getting ready for the regular meeting.
Just pretend it's on the 22nd.
Tell which is on 22nd.
Just give us the agendas like they're on the 22nd, but we'll have the meeting on the
Oh,
29th.
we would love that.
you can work that out,
Can I work what out?
moving it.
It's going to be tight. I mean, obviously, that's a period of time when a lot of the council members are going to be looking at the budget, and that's obviously,
Okay,
there's a lot of
now-
focus on that.
How about the week before? It's still summer though.
Right. We're all zooming.
August is usually out altogether. That's the thing.
You're saying the 15th?
I mean, I'll be here.
Yeah, but we lose 2 months.
But
Could we
definitely
look
not
at
the
that
22nd.
as we get closer to the date, maybe?
Okay, all right, we'll do that.
My concern is that, that's going to end up being a light agenda, and then we lose both August and September, because September is focused on budget. So we basically meet in July, and then we would reconvene at the next heavy would be to October 10th.
Well, but that's why having it at the end of August gives you can, that takes you through to October if you have a good agenda on that date.
And you're thinking the 15th is too much into summer still?
22nd.
15th, the week before, which is what.
Oh, no, that's even
Councilman-
worse.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
even worse.
Many years, we never even met in the summer.
I remember.
Usually
that.
August is a
Right, Joe?
recess month.
Right?
But we
Yeah,
also
but
met
that
twice
is
a
true.
month.
That is true. We also didn't meet in March because of the tennis tournament.
But any day but the 22nd. I won't be there if it's on the 22nd. It's my daughter's 15th birthday.
Okay, let's pencil in the 29th, and then we'll see as we get a little closer. First budget hearing, it's never going to be on the 6th, right?
You said it's never going to be the 6th?
Yeah, because the county is going to be on the 6th.
Well,
So you can't have it before
We
they,
don't know until, obviously, they publish theirs, but
Theirs is always on a Tuesday?
well,
that's a
the
Wednesday.
way it works at the county, that's the long weekend, okay? So, they move the meeting from Tuesday to Wednesday because it's a long weekend.
So I think the answer is if it is on that date, we can't have it. So,
Exactly.
So we can move it to the next day.
Yeah, that's why I just suggested the 7th because,
Yeah, we can't, particularly if we move the meeting to the 29th, we can't turn around on the 5th with the
No, you said the 7th.
Labor
not
Day
the-
weekend. No, that's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing with you. I'm moving to the 7th.
Well, I gotta say, I didn't like having it over the Labor Day weekend last time because all the reviewing that you have to do, and you're on a vacation with your family at the same time. It was a real pain. So I don't
So
know.
can we move it back some more?
Either back or ahead, whichever.
No, but you got to
Oh.
move it back. It can't go.
Because you have to have it within.
It's almost impossible to move forward.
Move it back.
Yeah, could you have it like, say, the
August
14th
28th?
and the 28th?
Okay, you meant move it to September 14th and then the September
Oh.
28th.
Something like that.
Yeah, we go, I would
Just make it
suggest
up.
Yeah, yeah.
12th and 26th, but yeah. The only risk we run is if we don't come to an approved budget on the 26th, we're going to have another meeting that week. If we're,
Hey, that's fine, yeah.
So the 12th.
I would prefer, for the same reason I think you all would prefer, not coming back after a Labor Day weekend and trying to put a budget hearing in place.
Yeah, it was
Right,
tough last
so
time.
we're saying.
So we're pushing it off.
12th and 26th.
12th and 26th, stick to Tuesdays, because people know Tuesdays.
Yeah, I think Tuesday's kind of our.
Okay, 12th and 26th, all right.
September 12th and 26th.
Yep.
Then the 29th of August becomes more palatable for us.
Yes, we fixed it.
Okay, October looks good. When is Columbus Day? Is that
The 12th?
October 9th?
October 12th.
No, but,
Yeah.
The 23rd,
Ninth.
the official Monday holiday,
The 9th.
the 9th? You want to move that?
I'm a true believer of keeping it on the 12th. I mean, I can do it. I mean, I like
No,
consistency.
okay. I was trying to give you help here,
We're
okay?
used to that. That's fine.
Okay,
Budget's a little different because we're working up to the last minute on the budget.
okay, so you're good with the 10th,
Yeah, I'm good with 10th, yeah.
okay?
October
Everybody else
10th.
good with the 10th?
Is that October 10th?
Good.
All right. November 14? Everybody good?
Yep, good.
December 12th, everybody good?
Yep, it's good.
Okay.
I think we got it.
Consensus of council?
Yes.
Either way you do it.
Yeah, Mr. Attorney, based on the item that passed in the referendum,
On the,
will you come to us with some suggestions on how we need to do that?
there's two items. I assume you're referring to the one that had the implementing ordinance. I believe it's on the manager's tracker. Joe, the ordinance implementing the charter amendment is on the tracker for January? Is that,
It's in December.
or December? Okay. So we have it on for your next meeting.
Okay,
It doesn't have to be. If you guys want to discuss it at the next meeting and then give us ideas and then have us draft it, we're good either way. There's not a time frame, but we do need to bring it
y'all
forward.
prefer to see a draft and work off of that?
Or concepts first and then.
Concepts at least, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
let's
Do
do
an
that.
outline.
I got a feeling that next December 13th going to be loaded for bear.
Okay,
Should we put in there, just put in the manager's report as some concepts?
we can do that.
And then.
And then
they
we'll
can-
bring an ordinance forward
they can
in January.
begin to, fabricate what they want to do.
That works for me.
Okay?
Motion, last thing, any possibility of getting a schedule of all the contracts when they're up for renewal? So we know when things are going to be bid, so we get this done and everything gets bid, a schedule, Steve?
We have one, yes.
Thank you. I mean, I'd like to have a copy at least.
Okay.
It's a database.
Sorry?
It's a database. We can give you access into the database. But there's no like straight line. It's a Excel database that you have to.
Let me just schedule so when they expire, in other words,
No,
we
no,
see.
we have that. but
By
it's-
date.
Yeah. But it's not a list. It's not a word list. It's a detailed Excel spreadsheet. So you're happy to come by and see it.
Okay, so for the good of the order, can I get a gavel so that I can gavel us out of
Like
here?
a true chair without a gavel.
Yeah, really. Well, all those in favor of adjourning? Say aye.
No discussion?
No
No
discussion.
second?